Since the murders of Abby and Libby 2,086 days ago, the daily investigative team has worked tirelessly and is certainly worthy of mention today. Specifically, Sheriff Linsonby, the Sheriff of Carroll County, Detectives Tony Liggett, Detective retired Kevin Hammond, former Delphi chief, and now the prosecutor's investigator, Steve Mullins, State Police First Sergeant Jerry Holman, Detectives Jay Harper, Dave Vito, and Brian Harshman, along with members of the United States Marshal Service, specifically Agent Jeremy Clinton and Agent Bill Colfers. With them today is Dan McLean, the U.S. Marshal, appointed U.S. Marshal. Our state police analyst, our scientist from many different disciplines within our laboratory division, Mrs. Kathy Shank, for your incredible dedication to detail, and to so many others that I know I've missed. I really believe that Abby and Libby would be proud of you for standing strong, even in the face of immense pressure and perpetual criticism.
Good morning.
Good morning, Salty. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I was cutting out a couple times. I'm like, I can't ever tell if it's me or this damn internet.
I saw your intro fine.
Okay, good. Must be just me. I'm getting used to it lately. It's like every time I go live, it's like in and out, in and out. Like, I can't with this anymore. Good morning, Butterfly. Thanks for joining. I know you're working and you're keeping an eye on chat for us, and this is a little bit last minute, so I appreciate it. Oh, okay. So are we waiting people to get in and come along for the ride here? Openings or closing arguments are be coming up next. The defense appears to have rested their case in Delphi.
Yeah, and I believe the state has 2 rebuttal witnesses that they're going to call. I think they might be calling, no, not Cecil, but one of their other technical experts. And then they're going to call, I believe, Brian Harshman, who was the officer that listened in on a lot of Rick Allen's phone calls from the prison to his wife and mother. So I think that will probably wrap it up unless the defense has a rebuttal, but that usually doesn't happen.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing that you're hearing, the 2 rebuttal witnesses, and I did see that Harshman was expected to be one of those. And it's like I was trying to think, well, of your rebuttal witnesses that, of all the ones you can call, what are you bringing back up? And I guess that one is just for them to try to drive home last minute that, oh, shoot, my kid trying to call me. So I may have to mute and take that. But anyway, yeah, just that's what you bring home is to get him in there to, I guess, reiterate how the state feels that Rick Allen was, I guess, faking his psychosis and he really meant all those confessions.
That's been one of the points of, gosh, I'm going to hold off swearing as long as I can on this, but that's one of the points of oddity, of screwing with the legal system by allowing someone who is a police officer and is not trained in any type of psychiatric discipline at all to testify on the stand that they believe he was faking. And that's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. So how, with everything that's been presented, how do you feel like the state's case came off?
I felt like they presented everything they had to present, and they didn't really have any surprises outside of the probable cause affidavit. We saw everything in the probable cause affidavit, and we all are like, it's kind of weak. And they did have a couple of technical experts.
Sorry, I got to mute.
Go ahead. I'll keep talking about the state's case. They did have a couple of technical experts that probably did kind of get some points across to the jury. So, it's up to the jury now whether they believe that it's not just a preponderance of the evidence. Like, you can't just hear Oban and think, okay, that's beyond a reasonable doubt. But you can. I mean, juries they have listened to certain experts and they have given them more weight than other experts. But the defense had a good counter to the state's case. They had a good expert on there who is basically world renowned. What was his name? Grassian, Grassian, who has published multiple papers and studies through Washington University, or is it University of Washington? I always get those mixed up. I mean, whether to say one before the other. It's the same university, but on solitary confinement and the effects of solitary confinement on prisoners. And so we heard a lot about that. And I actually started downloading some of those last night after somebody in Bob Mata's chat clued me into looking up some of those studies. So, I mean, that's now it's up to the jury. I mean, we have,
Yeah.
it will be, it's up to the attorneys to put it all together for the jury in their closing arguments. And I think that's going to be huge. And I know that Andy Baldwin is feeling a tremendous amount of pressure. I know he is. When I was there the last time on the 24th, I didn't witness it for myself, but I heard that he kind of snapped at one of his legal assistants because they were getting ready to have a really big cross after a really important state witness had testified. And he snapped at her and he said, well, we're getting ready to have a really big cross. So I know they're all feeling the pressure. And even though he's really good at kind of hiding that when he's actually up there cross-examining witnesses and he's like raising his eyebrows at the jury or raising his eyebrows at the witness or raising his eyebrow at the judge, on some kind of an objection by Nick McClellan, he's still feeling a tremendous amount of pressure. He is, to wrap
Oh,
it all
yeah.
concisely in a good closing argument.
How could you not be at this, stage throughout the whole thing, but especially knowing what's on the line and that you were, essentially the defense was so tied into what they can and can't do. Couldn't just walk in there and present what they felt like they needed to, or even bringing in their witnesses. They had an issue even getting that into court, and they weren't allowed in some of the cases. We saw that. Hi, Jenny. Welcome in. Sorry, I was reading her comment here. Yeah, he can't really read a room. None of those people can seem to read the room, Jenny, right? I mean, they just didn't. And I'm with you, Joe. If you look at some of the past cases throughout history and what solitary confinement can do to people, and how many people have been exonerated later on because of false confessions. This isn't stuff that's new. It isn't just heard of for the first time. It's been going on, and I think it gets overlooked by a lot of people in the community. I'll say true crime community, because we don't see a lot of these cases, and when we do hear about them, it's because of the person was already found guilty, and people are like, oh, they're guilty, so it doesn't really matter. But you can see that it does matter, even if they're convicted. That's why we have the Constitution. That's why we have rights. And, I thoroughly believe that a lot of times victim rights get lost in defendant rights, but I absolutely understand why we need defendant rights. And, one of my early thoughts, I'm talking like almost a year ago, was when the Idaho 4 case was just like in full throttle, and that's all anybody talked about. When none of the theories and rumors panned out, it was, oh, it's all about his rights. Okay, I'll buy that. I can buy that. But what I saw happening, trying to achieve those goals in Idaho 4, while I watched Rick Allen get the shit end of the stick the entire time, even from the community, was really, to me, it was mind boggling. It's like, how can you not see one without the other? This is like this is something that should affect all of us in the end, but it's just now coming to light, some of this stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, and what's really crazy is a quote that I heard from Bob Motta last night that Nick McClelland said on cross-examination of this expert witness by the defense, Gracian. He said, and something that was quoted on direct examination was the United Nations has standards of prisoner abuse, standards of protecting prisoners from abuse, and the UN standards are anything over 15 days in prison. And remember how long Nelson Mandela was in prison, but specifically in solitary, anything over 15 days in solitary is an abuse of the prisoner's rights, is abusive conduct. And he was in there for 12, 13 months, whatever it was, in solitary. So, many, much longer than what the UN agrees. But Nick McClelland stands up and he goes, this is the United States of America. We do not have to comply with the United Nations standards on prisoner treatment. And I just that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because in the state of Indiana, in a little county, a tiny little county like Carroll County, a tiny little town like Delphi, Indiana, we don't give a flying F about prisoners' rights, about the treatment of prisoners, about abusive treatment. He confessed to nothing before he went into pretrial detention in the state prison, was shackled and treated the way he was for 12 or 13 months, whatever it was. And then he confessed after 4.5 or 5 months, whatever it was, from November to April, before he started confessing. So that's basically what they're hanging their entire case on. Because we also heard yesterday from that toolmark expert for the defense that said he actually quantified the uncertainty. And he said, we either need 6 striations or we need 2 groups of 3 striations to say that we have a significant agreement between the firearm and that spent casing. And she only found 4. So we actually had somebody quantify it. And so basically all they have is the confessions. That's it.
And I think the jury has a lot of questions about these alleged confessions. If you look at the time frame that was laid out in the presentation of the two sides of when things began to happen and how they began to happen, it didn't look good, in my opinion, for the state. If I walked in there not knowing anything about this case and I'm that juror, what I was presented was not full, beyond a reasonable doubt evidence by the state. You've shown me some cell phone data that's highly questionable and still had questions as of yesterday. We heard something new about Libby's phone come out, according to a defense expert that we finally get to hear from, like, final day. I think that should have been hit home. These cell phone data and all these cases are major parts of these cases. They were a major part of the Murdaugh case. They're going to be a big deal in the Idaho case because that's one of the only things you got, cell phone data and car footage. The data and forensic data. And Bryan Kohberger was wanting to go train small police departments on how to better collect this sort of evidence. So he literally applied for a job there and didn't get it, but that's a whole other story. But this is part of the future. And so why do we have all these? I get it, things change from 2017 to 2024, but they haven't changed that damn much. You continue to get better with your evidence pulls, with your extractions, and all the things you can find out. But this phone has been a iffy thing from the get go, you know? First, why was it even left there? Why not take it? Why not get rid of it? If you were the perpetrator, are you just going to leave this phone there? All the things that were discussed. Video of suspect on the phone. Audio of suspect on the phone. Oh, the phone's moving. Oh, it's not. Oh, it left the scene. No, it didn't. Oh, it's pinging at 4 a.m. No, it didn't. Now we got ahead, hearing that something was plugged into the jack at 5:30. Like, what? What's going on with this phone? Who's controlling it all this time? And we couldn't bring in the geofencing data. It's like, what's up with this phone situation in Delphi?
Yeah, and
It's
and
crazy.
and now it's also so I kind of went down a rabbit trail last night because Betsy Blair, the defense called Betsy Blair back to testify, and the reason that she had to come back to testify was because she was a state's witness, but
Mhm.
Baldwin wanted to ask her a couple of questions about her testimony, and McClellan objected because he said they were outside the scope of the direct examination that he did, and that was granted by Judge Gohl. So Betsy Blair has to go home. She has to come back a week later, or however many days it was, and
Yeah.
then Baldwin can ask her the questions he wanted to ask her the first time. And my mind just started going down this rabbit hole because she mentioned Anderson Grain, and Anderson Grain is that huge agricultural operation that's
I
north of the
looked it up on
trails.
the map. When you were telling me about that, didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm glad you brought that up because I did look at that this morning on a Google Earth map. I was like, Joe mentioned that was a business from years ago, correct? It's no longer open now, but it's still
No, it is.
business
It
wise.
is. It
Oh,
is still
okay.
open now. Yes,
Okay.
they got shrunk down a little bit with the Hoosier Heartland corridor when they built that in
All
2012,
right.
2013. They took a chunk of their
Mm-hmm.
property, but they mostly went around the major part of that agricultural operation, and they still maintain an agricultural operation. And actually, the Abbey and Libby Memorial Park is right there in front of that, north of the trails.
Yeah, it's very close. I noticed that on the map. Now, what was Betsy exactly saying about that location?
So she said when she first got there, she parked at the Mears Farm entrance. So
Mhm.
there's no real parking lot over there at the Mears Farm entrance. Apparently, people would just like in 2017, and even I did it the other day when I was there, just kind of pull off to the side. There wasn't a gate there in 2017, so you could probably pull into the drive a little bit better. Then you get out and you go down that little short stretch to the T where you can go right to the Freedom Bridge or you can go left to the Monon High Bridge, and she would do a loop. So in my estimation, she would probably go either down to the Monon High Bridge and then up to the Freedom Bridge and then back. And she would do that 3 times every time she would come out. It was like her regular exercise path. There's not really a loop you can go unless you want to cross the bridge. And she said she didn't cross the bridge. So she's just basically walking back and forth on that path. And she kind of parked, but she had to go to the bathroom after 2 of those loops or 2 of those back and forth trips. She had to go to the bathroom. So she goes past the Hoosier Harvest Store. Her car is picked up on camera. I can't remember the time. I need to find it and I need to put it on my map, but I'm going to get to that in a second. She goes into the Delphi Public Library, which, if you look at my live stream, I drove past it going from Richard Allen's house around the loop when I was there on the 31st. Goes to the public library, goes to the bathroom, and comes back, but she doesn't go back to the Mears Farm entrance. She said she parked at the Anderson Grain entrance.
So that's up here, right? Or I'm circling with my mouse, if you guys can see that.
Well, do you want me to pull up mine? Because I actually have
Yeah,
those different entrances pulled up.
that's cool. Yeah, because I want people to see what we're talking about here. Because I learned so much better from doing a visual. While you pull that up, I'm going to go grab a cup of coffee, and then we'll get your screen up. I'll be right back.
Share screen. Okay, here we go. Window. Boop. Share. All right. So, am I sharing the right one? Oh, Salty, you have to let me share. Salty left and she didn't let me share. So we'll have to wait till we get back. Dang, StreamYard is acting up. It won't. All right. Anyway, so the Betsy Blair thing kind of sent me down a rabbit hole. And it's a rabbit hole that matters to me in guilt or innocent and the timeline, which the timeline is huge, and we know that.
Okay. You got your screen ready, and I'll pull it up for you.
Hold on 1 second here. Maybe pull up the one I shared on Discord last night, because I'm having trouble, and StreamYard is like giving me fits about sharing. Like I click the little present button and then the little share screen, and it disappears.
Oh, okay. Let's see, Phil.
It's being really finicky. Did I share that with you on Discord? I thought I did.
I don't see it, but then again, we share so much. I was just looking through there. Maybe not. We might have talked. Nope. I think the last thing I got like that was some pictures.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm gonna have to share it with you, because for some reason StreamYard is being really iffy with me. I think you're trying to block me.
No, I don't normally block folks.
No,
So
yeah.
bring it, people. Got to be super irritating or something vicious for me to block. Because I don't block because I like to be nosy. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Okay. You just sent me something. Let's see if I can pull it up. Because I'm in. Boy, when your kid's trying to pull a fast one, why do they think they can come back and tell you something good that'll make you be like, oh, it's cool. Can I leave school early? I don't want to stay for a pep rally. I think you should stay. Well, if it makes you feel better, I got a 94 on my essay. What the hell? What's that got to do with leaving school early, boy? No. Yay for doing right. No, he's a good kid. I shouldn't be complaining.
I don't need school. I got a 94. I'm ready to
That's
graduate.
right. I got on an essay. He does pretty good in school. Okay, yeah, so this is true, Jenny, and I wanted to ask about that. So the man who was there, I got his name too, he saw the vehicle he described was an 80 to 90s model square car. That's also very, very similar to what Betsy was describing, except she says it appeared to be more like the car her dad had in the 60s. But the other guy's saying 80s model, which I don't really, old car. But in 2017, an old car from the 80s, 90s, 60s, who the hell knows anymore. But what my takeaway is older model, square body. Nothing to do with a newer model hatchback or anything like that, similar to Rick Allen's actual car.
Right. That was a very clear point that I don't remember who crossed her, if it was Baldwin or Rosie, whichever one crossed her said. So it wasn't a newer model car, and she said very clearly, no, it was an older model car.
All right, let me see if I can pull up what Joe was talking about now, because I don't know if I can pull it up through StreamYard because won't let me see if it's going to let me.
Is your present button also giving you problems?
No, I got the present button. I just wasn't sure about presenting from Discord onto my StreamYard while I'm.
Oh, yeah. You might have to save it to your hard drive.
No, I'll just do it like this. Let's see. I'm going to pull up my Earth map.
I'm going to jump out of StreamYard and jump right back in and see if that fixes my button. I'll be right back.
Okay. See if that fixes his button, you guys. Okay, so let me get this until we get Joe back in here. With that, I'll show you guys on this one. And Joe can help get us there as far as the visual. Okay, so right there, the red dot, that's where the trail is. But here is the cemetery. If you guys can see right there is the cemetery. And straight back here is the private drive. And the girls are found basically right in here, right under the blue area here. So this is the 300 North, where Hoosier Harvest. Here's the Mears entrance right here. So this will be the Mears entrance. Over here is the Hoosier Harvester, where the camera is located that they all keep talking about, that sees, the famous screenshot place. That's what I'm going to call it. And then, so if you are dropped off at Mears and you come down, you're going to pass the Hoosier Harvester and go around. Over here is where the Anderson place is at, we were talking about. And that appears to be one of the parking locations. And there's another parking area right here where it says the trail. Joe, I think that's one of the parking lots he visited when he went on his drive the other day for us, trying to give us a gist. And I believe this would be the CPS parking. So the Hoosier Harvester is here. Come down 300 North, and you got the CPS parking on the left, and then we're going to go down and around the corner, and that's the other place. I can't really. I don't think Betsy and the exterminator guy, they saw similar cars, but I think they were just like a little different location spot. The gentleman who saw the car, the 80s to 90s older model, he said it was parked just like 2 feet off the road. And I believe he was working either here at Anderson's or this location, whatever this particular place was at. He was there doing scanning and surveying for the exterminator business. And it's when he saw a car close to there. So it sounded to me like they were describing the same car. Was it seen parked at one location and then it moved to another spot and she saw it? All right, Joe's back. Let's see. Let me get him up here. All right, are you back?
Hey,
Let me
I'm
take
back.
my screen. Let me take mine down and we'll see if you can get yours up now. I was just showing them the regular map so we can kind of get an idea of what we were talking about until you got back.
Yeah, and you were pointing to that building, that kind of oval shaped building, and that is Anderson Green. Like that entire property through there, from the big silos all the way down through there, is all Anderson Green.
Back to here. Oh, you can't see it. Oh, you guys aren't. Y'all aren't seeing my map anymore. It's just
You can
me.
share mine. I pulled up my
Okay,
Google.
let's get you up here. Add to stage. Okay,
There we go.
Take it
All
away,
right.
Joe.
So there's the Google map location for Anderson's Delphi, probably because that's their main entrance, but they own the property and owned it back in 2017 and back in 2012 when Hoosier Heartland went through there. They lost some buildings down here, but that's still an agricultural operation. So if you come over here to the Nietzsche's parking lot, or if you come down here to the Delphi Public Library, that's emergency management. Oh, there's a library. Okay, so there's a library in town. That's where she went. So she parked over here at the Mears Farm entrance. When she did her first couple loops, she had to go to the bathroom. So she goes all the way around the loop past Hoosier Harvester, where I know she was caught on camera. I don't know what time, traveling east to west, around down to the library in town, goes to the bathroom, comes back. She doesn't go back and park at the Mears Farm entrance. She says the Anderson Grain entrance. So here's the main entrance up on the north end.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't seem practical.
Right.
Like she's not going to go park there and then walk all the way down here. So there's another little cutout right here that maybe some people could park at, but she saw somebody at the CPS building, which is over here. So I don't think she went to that little entrance thing either. That's probably like a little utility something or other, maybe a sanitary sewer lift station or something, possibly. So I'm thinking she went past that. She drove past the CPS building out of the right side. She saw a car parked there that reminded her of her dad's old car, Boxy. And then maybe she came down here and maybe she parked right here and she called that the Anderson Grain entrance, because you can just get out, you can park there, get out of your car, and then you're down at the Freedom Bridge, and she can do her last loop to the Monon High Bridge and come back and then go home.
Well, what area? Oh, so that's so convenient to the Freedom Hybrid. I mean, how or the Freedom Bridge? There's not like a designated name for that parking area that
Nope.
locals would just
Nope.
whatever.
Nope.
So you call it whatever you like. The Mears entrance. Locals would know what that was, but somebody traveling wouldn't have a clue what that meant.
Correct. And it's my understanding that she was out there on a regular basis and she did her 3 loops on a regular basis.
Yeah, she was out there quite all the time, so she would have her own places to call things. You know what I mean? I do it. Like there's local areas around here, and we all know there, the place with the big watermelon sign, or whatever. There's just something that you
Right.
identify it with.
But the attorneys very clearly said, so one of the witnesses, and I can't remember if it was her in one of her prior testimonies, or if it was another witness, said they parked at the niches entrance. Niches. I keep saying niches because niche is the French way to pronounce it, but niches is the local land trust. And if you look at my live video from the other day, there is a little memorial right here that wasn't there in 2017. It's newer. But the Niches Land Trust is right here. This area that's south of the trail is the Mary Whistler Woods, I think. I think this is the Mary Whistler Woods, and I believe this is the Niches entrance. So she could have, coming back from the library, just been like, okay, I'm going to go park here, and I'm going to do my last loop, and then come back. But she did say, somebody said Niches. I don't remember if it was Betsy Blair, another witness, but she did say this time on direct, it was the Anderson Grain entrance, which is, and the attorney said, you mean the Mears Farm entrance? And she said, yeah, I guess, which is not correct.
That's not right either. Yeah.
No.
And there's not that many witnesses that testified that actually were there that day that saw too many things as far as, the females. So I don't really recall which one mentioned the Niches parking like you were talking about, but it would probably be Betsy. I don't think it was Miss Sarah.
No.
She was too focused in on things she didn't see or allegedly saw, however you want to put her words. I'm just kind of being a smartass at this point with Miss Sarah. Yeah, I still think. So I was looking for the name of the gentleman who was the
pest guy.
His work, and he saw the vehicle. He saw 2 different times. One in the I think he saw it in the morning and the afternoon. It was still there. And it was parked just like a couple feet off the road. So I'm assuming it wasn't in an actual parking lot, I guess, just pulled off the road, but I'm not exactly sure where. I was looking for his.
Right. The Mears Farm entrance is the one that is the most obviously you just kind of pull off of the road. Because the others have places where you can definitely pull in. There's one there. There's that entrance there that has not been talked about at all. And that is like very convenient access to the Freedom Bridge and the Monon High Bridge Trail.
And you would think that a lot of people would use that. I guess if you're a local, maybe not. Mears is convenient and it's back there, and you can park and get to the trail you want to get on if you're particularly going toward Monon High Bridge versus wanting to go through everything else. Because we have main parking lots around here for our trails, and then we also have like little sub parking lots for certain trailheads. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more conveniently located to where you want to be in the system, I guess.
Absolutely. But if his car wasn't picked up on the Hoosier Harvest Store and her car wasn't Betsy Blair's car wasn't picked up coming back, it had to have been over here in this area. Like that's where cars are either pulled off the road or they're backed into a parking space.
Yeah. Let me,
And at one point in time, I think in his interview with Dan Doolin wrote down Farm Bureau building,
mm-hmm.
which
Oh,
could be either CPS or it could be Anderson Grain, because
well,
I mean,
in the beginning of all of this, that was a lot of back and forth, even on social media, Farm Bureau versus CPS. And we were all looking at maps going, well, where's all this at? Because we don't see this and that. Then it was like, are they the same two buildings, just had different names at different times? Like it was actually was it the old CPS building
yes,
that
it
at
was
one
the old
point
CPS
became,
building, and I believe that Kathy Shank worked there for like 40 years.
mm-hmm. So it was,
So
it was definitely the old CPS building. Did it become a Farm Bureau at
no,
any point and then
no,
close down from that? That's what
no.
people were wondering as well. Are we talking two separate whole physical locations or same piece of land? You know what I mean?
Or just somebody saying Farm Bureau when they were thinking of something else. Because I mean, if you look at
Yeah.
the Anderson Grain properties, I mean that's a huge like co-op type of complex.
Yeah,
And
and Farm
there's
Bureau was stated in a document somewhere. 'Cause that's where it came from. It's so, like you said, it was either written down wrong, something about that statement, was on the record, but it's not. Then
yes,
we
and we
hear
don't have his original notes because he transposed them to Word and then got rid of his original notes. But you can see here there are huge piles of grain. These are like corn that they just piled up into huge piles. I believe, I'm 99% sure that's what they are. So you can imagine they would have a potential for pest problems. So, that guy
Oh
that was
yeah,
over there may have been like inspecting those for some ways to take care of that. Like you would want to
yeah.
have good pest control around that building and all of the other buildings.
Oh yeah, he worked for a big company that he called it scanning the property, I guess to like map it. You know what I mean? To figure out what they do. My ex-husband's dad used to own one of them kind of companies in Alabama. They have to do a lot of stuff. But he was out there all day and noticed this individual car at two different times, but it was there morning and night. And like Jenny says, so if you got reports of a car of this type of car early in your statements from potential witnesses, did you also see this older model square car on your video from Who's Your Harvester? Did you take screenshots of that car as well? Were you able to locate that car's owner? Did you run some questions by this person? And here we are with closing arguments coming up in this case, and there's so much that was brought out about their lack of investigation. And I'm being nice when I say that.
Yeah, and all of us, quote unquote, true crime internet sleuths, whatever you want to call us, that are diving deep into these details and being knowledgeable, and people like DB that are really, really technically knowledgeable about a lot of the aspects of the case. It all is for nothing in the end. We're we are such a fast food instant gratification society that we pull up to Burger King and we order a Whopper. We know what we're going to get. 99% of the time, we know exactly what we're going to get. We pull up to Wendy's, we order a Baconator. We know what we're going to get. Pull up to Starbucks and order a white mocha cappuccino. We know what we're going to get. But
you know what's about to happen though? When I would hearing you say that, you're right, but I'm gonna be cussing because I'm gonna be like, I knew I shouldn't have got this damn food because it's not gonna be made right and it's gonna be cold. Like I don't even want to, like I will be a whole thing, so I don't go anymore. I don't consume what I know is probably gonna be crap or mediocre at best.
yes, yeah,
And
but
that's coming from an ex restaurant manager.
Yeah, and you know that. You know what you're going to get. Like if you're starving, if you're coming back
Wendy's,
from
I'm
a
going to go
go ahead.
ahead. No, like, I'm going to bring you some food. Like, the only thing that's going to work is a chili and a potato because that'll still be warm when you get home and I can heat it back up if I need to. I live too far for you to bring me a crappy burger. But people need to stop consuming what you already know is probably not going to be
But
mediocre at best.
but we do it because we know what to expect. We
Uh,
know we know that they're doing a half-assed job of serving us something that we will eat, and probably because we only spent $12, $13, we're not going to come back and complain about it, because then we'll get a certificate for a free value meal, right? If you complain about it, go talk to the manager. You spend a half an hour waiting for the manager, and you get a coupon for a free value meal. After all of this, after weeks and weeks and months and years of internet sleuthing and diving into the details and hearing new details come out in the trial, this is all getting turned over to a jury that we have no control over, and we have no idea what the outcome is going to become. And so we all have anxiety about it. I have anxiety
well,
about it.
we
I
do.
know other people do too.
Yeah, we do because I think we all have at this point we're all feeling one way or the other. We're at that point where we should have a thought now and a feeling and a way we would vote if we're on a jury. Innocent until proven guilty. Now's that time. They're in the deliberation room going over all the evidence that's been presented, probably not knowing a majority of what we know. If they've been honest, they're not supposed to know. But here's going back to some of the things Ann Taylor was hitting on pre-trial coverage and how it will case and perception of the public. So we got a man coming out shackled, dirty, all it's, he's so mean and bad. We have to shackle him up this way and put all these guards on him. Is for his protection and yours. So you got a bad preconceived notion about what this individual is without knowing a damn thing about his past. But you got Bryan Kohberger walking in over here, suit and tie, pre-trial, at hearings, because we don't want you to think this guy's bad because of the way you see him shackled and chained. But we aren't seeing that in the Kohberger case. Now, I get it. That's different states, but by God, it should be one way for all of them across the board. We can't pick and choose in society. Oh, he looks normal like most of us, so let's go support him. This guy looks like everyday Joe Blow from down at the CVS, traipsing off society. Really, now I question you. It's like I question the questionable fast food joints. I will not go back and continue to consume their half-ass meals. I don't do it. Like I can't with mainstream media. For 2 years, 3 years, everybody's screaming at me about it's fake news, it's fake media. Okay, well, let's just stop watching. So I did. People are still coming out. Oh, can you believe they said? Yeah, I believe they said and did that. Y'all told me a long time they did. Now I can fight it and go out there and scream about them all day long, or I can come out here and try to bring what I can. I don't know what the answer is either, but you don't want to feel like your efforts are in vain. And if this can shed light on things that need to be reformed, like the criminal justice system, then we need to be here for it. And thank you, Andrea Burkhart, in my opinion, and she's filed some motions. She may not get anywhere with them or not, but she's trying.
Yeah, and in the end, it's in the hands of the jury, and it's not a fast food instant gratification result that we're going to get. We have no control. It's just like the presidential election. So many people have anxiety going into that, and so many people are disappointed with the results because
I have,
Their person didn't get elected, but we have no control over it. I mean, we have a vote, yes, and our vote matters, yes, and especially when the margins are razor slim, our vote matters. But we have the electoral college, which kind of dilutes that one vote matters thing a little bit. But people have anxiety over things that are really not completely in their control. And the jury verdict in this case is one of those that a lot of us have a lot of emotional energy vested in.
politics. I didn't even know who won, who came close. Like it doesn't matter to me at this point, because I didn't care if either one of those people won. I'll be honest. I don't get into the politics either, but I just can't. We have to quit just talking about what's the hottest topic. Like, are we going to take anything seriously anymore? Are we just going to run? Are we just good with running out and ranting and raving? Let's find something else to bitch about. I hate complaining. I like it. It's a boring conversation to me, kind of like the weather. I find certain topics incredibly boring, and I don't know. There just needs to be a lot more done, and I think Ann Taylor was right about the way the media comes out and portrays these defendants. And I hate to say it, that she's absolutely right. It puts a preconceived notion out there that can be hard to come back from sometimes, especially if you have gag orders, or if you're trying to get certain things out about your client, or you want things kept quiet about your client. It could go either way. Where's that balance? And then I hear everybody saying that there doesn't need to be all this pre-trial publicity. Then I think back, well, you know what? Find her guilty or not guilty. That's your personal choice. I'm not here to debate that. What I will debate with you, though, is for 2 solid years, Nancy Grace, that lady that everybody's just now learning is kind of weird, she was doing this shit back then. Okay, for 2 solid years, she brought you nonstop Casey Anthony coverage. Everything Florida could put out into discovery, she had it. Jail phone calls, and we see with the Stearns case, Florida will give you everything, and they're not ashamed of it. They'll just, here it is. Y'all have your way with it. So we got to see it all pre-trial. There was no gag order. There was no moving venues, no bringing in an outside jury. None of that. Casey Anthony walked because they couldn't prove her guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And Florida has very strict rules to their jury about reasonable doubt. And Judge Gall touched on some of those there in Indiana in her little mini, what was it, that the mini, where she did the little swearing into the jury and gave them some instructions. She talked about it then. If any, independently, this evidence has to be proven beyond reasonable. Independently, meaning each part of the evidence, not just he did it. He's the bridge guy.
Yeah, and I think All Eyes on X gave us a little sneak peek. She posted those on a tweet a while ago, or whatever you call them now on X.
What was her tweet? She's got some interesting ones, and I do see a lot of her tweets.
Yeah, it was specifically about the jury instructions, and I didn't download them at the time because I was.
Yes, see, Nancy was there to get her little. She wanted to be there on confession day for a reason. Nancy went on confession day for a reason. She thinks that's what's going to hang him. And she, by God, had to be in that courtroom to hear that damning evidence where she could run back out, fly home, get in the studio real quick, and put her little show together. But that's not quite the way it went down for Nancy. And then she has to go on her show and start highlighting some of my friends on Twitter's comments. I'm like, dude, you got highlighted on the Nancy Grace show. It was funny, but that's but she has a certain audience, and people listen to her. They listen to Jennifer Coffindaffer still. after we saw her bring some fake Google stuff out here and tell us all it was real, and she was so nervous and excited because she had a scoop on these Google searches and couldn't wait to get it out there, and they're fake, lady. So I can't trust none of them media people, and I'm not got time to battle all of them either. And I don't know, even if it doesn't reach a lot of people, what we try to get out there, at least we try, guys. So
There we go. Here are the preliminary jury instructions that she gave back on the 18th
Joe, on
before the
like,
trial started.
I'm sorry, you were beeping out. What was that?
I found that tweet. I found the.
Okay, good, because I'm about to say you and All Eyes can probably give us all a good lesson in little Indiana law here on that. I'll let Joe take over, guys, while he brings that up.
I am definitely not a legal expert by any stretch.
No, we're just we're sharing opinions over here. Okay, Butterfly, I see you. Go ahead, Joe.
Do you want to share that? I put it up.
Oh, let me get that up.
All right, there we go.
There we go.
So, All Eyes, thank you for posting this. Makes it a lot easier than digging through.
Yeah, guys, she's got a great Twitter feed if you want to go give her a follow over there.
Oh, man, it won't let me zoom in, so I'm going to have to read it.
That's cool.
Like this. Boop, boop, boop. The defendant has entered a pleas of not guilty. The charges have been filed. The fact that charges have been filed and the defendant has been arrested is not to be considered by evidence of guilt. Under the laws of this state, a person charged with a crime is presumed innocent. That's also in the Constitution, I believe, in the U.S. Constitution. But if the evidence lends itself to two reasonable interpretations, you must choose the interpretation consistent with the defendant's innocence. Oh my gosh. That's huge in this case because we have battling experts. We have the cell phone experts. We have the solitary confinement experts.
Mm-hmm.
And those can lead you to having two conclusions, and I'm not sure which is one. And they're told right here, if the evidence lends itself to two reasonable interpretations, you must choose the interpretation consistent with the defendant's innocence. If there's only one, you must accept the interpretation. Go ahead.
And there's no physical evidence to tie this suspect to the scene, like DNA, right? Like with Casey Anthony. And honestly, guys, I believe she, did what she was accused of. But if you get technical about the case and you look at the actual evidence, what they had was circumstantial. And the experts brought on by the defense were much more believable than the state's witnesses. I promise you, I gave them all fair evaluation, and I was floored at the state's lack of great expert witnesses, because I really thought they would have something better than they did, and they didn't. The defense brought it and showed how your junk science is junk science. Now, which experts are these jurors going to believe? Joe, I mean, we ought to do a poll and see what you guys think on these experts as far as which one carried more weight in your opinions.
Well, the part of the problem with this is we have to rely on the people who are boots on the ground, Andrea and Lawyer Lee and Bob Mata and their notes and their lives after the fact every single day. And True Grit Crime. I mean, all of the people that are trying to get in there every day, and she got bumped out today for some BS that maybe she'll talk about later. But they did a whole new thing with the line.
In the morning.
Yeah, they did a whole new thing with the line overnight. Like last night, they went and posted signs around the courthouse that said nobody can get in line before 7 a.m. the day of the trial.
And that's so rude. I'm sorry, Judge Gold, whoever decided to. Why? You see the same people there day in and day out now. They're trying to do their best to get in there every single morning. Which exactly one was you trying to keep out by posting your little sign? Your cute little sign. I felt that was targeted. Was it for Murder Sheet? I mean, oh shit. Am I going to get in trouble for saying that? I mean, what was that? What are you trying to prove there? No lines can be formed. All of a sudden, y'all can't camp out here and try to get your seat. All 22 of you that are left trying. Oh, that's ridiculous.
Well,
So,
here's the thing. It's the county commissioners that are in charge of that land because that's a county courthouse, so it's county land. So we heard on day
they
one.
can stop trying to pass the buck, is what they made yesterday evening in somebody's office.
Yeah, I don't know if it was them or not. I don't know because you get two different stories. You get the county commissioners that said after day one, so on day one, we were told nobody can camp out on the steps overnight. You have to come in. And there was no declaration of what time was acceptable. Was it 12:01 a.m.? Was it 5:01 a.m.? Was it 7 o'clock in the morning? We didn't know. But then the county commissioner said, okay, this is county land. You can camp out on it overnight, but you can't camp out on the lawn. You have to be on the concrete, either the steps or the ramp or the sidewalk. So everybody's been standing on the sidewalk starting at like 8 o'clock the night before. But if you go inside the courthouse and you ask the deputies about it, they say that's the call of Judge Gull. Judge Gull is the one who
Yeah.
determines what the court decorum is and all that.
Yeah.
So we don't know who made that order last night that said that you can't line up before 7 a.m. But there was supposedly a list that was made. So I watched the end of True Grit Crimes live an hour or so ago. She said there was a list that was made last night. And if you weren't on that list, then you weren't getting it. And they also said they reduced the number of public spots from 24 to 16.
Yeah, I heard that there. I got this yesterday, and I think it was. It might have been on. Only people I've been looking at on print is like wishtv.com or whatever, and so a couple of spots that were reserved for the defense originally are now having a few media people sit there. And that I don't know why. They couldn't explain why either.
Yes, I heard the number of seats for the defense got cut in half from 10 to 5.
And that's crazy. Why? I mean, why? Even if they weren't filled up, so then let the defense choose who they would like their guests to be, since those were allotted for the defense. Let them have. I mean, what's the big deal here? Oh, y'all might show some. Stop it. Stop it. Like, I'm not in the Sebastian Rogers case where all these damn adult drama shit. I do not care about your drama. What's right? What's wrong? What's black and damn white? What's in front of our eyes? Can we talk about that for a minute? Because I don't got time for all this extra boring stuff. We can talk about with anything. Shit. I mean, it's like, good Lord, what's even happening anymore? And I've been asking, a lot of people have been asking, how can one judge yield so much power? There's nobody to answer to. There's always somebody to answer to. Is it just the Supreme Court? Is there like a little division that watches and oversees these judges, like a good citizens group or a watchdog group? Or are we relying on public defense attorneys to get fed up with what they're seeing and file motions?
Yeah, and
Kara did it already in this case. This case has been to the Supreme Court once.
And I think that's where I was going with that point when you said we should do a poll. It's like, we have to rely on the people that are in the courtroom. And so when we hear their lives every night, we get their slant on it. And I think Bob is probably the most objective in the fact when he thinks that Nick McClelland or one of the other deputy prosecuting attorneys makes a good point. He will say, that was a good cross or that was a good examination. He will say that most of the time, but not all of the time. So we don't have this streamed live. We don't have this viewed live. This is not in compliance with our Sixth Amendment, with Rick Allen's Sixth Amendment right to a public trial.
No, and I got that Sixth Amendment right on my thumbnail for this show, along with 3 defendant pictures, all 3 different crimes. only one of those three we absolutely know is guilty as charged. And it's the guy in the middle. Because he's a bloomin' ass idiot, thank God, who left the evidence all over his phone and deleted it. But it was all recovered. You know, that little phone data stuff they're trying to get us all on.
Imagine if you actually did your investigation properly.
Imagine. And as I was going over more of those documents, because I knew in the Stearns case they slapped trackers on those vehicles very early on, and it's brought up again in this new doc drop with the dates and the warrants and all that, because I love good evidence. I always want to know how they got that evidence. Where'd they get it? What got the probable cause for that? All these searches, all that stuff matters in the end, because when we all see, when it comes down to it, no matter what our damn theories are, what can we present in court and what can we not present in court? And it's always going to come down to the actual evidence that you have. Car cameras these days, car cameras, cell phone data, and maybe some eyewitnesses, maybe. And we see how reliable those are becoming.
Yeah, Jenny, that's a good point. There are some very good law tubers out there,
very good,
that have handled this very responsibly, and we like to watch and get their opinion on this. But they are looked down by mainstream media. Absolutely, they are, and I saw that in person in the courtroom, where these 12 mainstream quote unquote credentialed media get to go in there. They get to see the evidence afterwards. They get to see the exhibits. But they definitely do look down on anybody that's not quote unquote credentialed media. And Allie Mata can tell you about one of them, her personal experience. She's been called out. This gal from the Carroll County Comment. Yeah, I saw her when I went in there on the 24th, and she was actually having a discussion with Libby's mom, and I'm like, what is up with that? I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. I didn't eavesdrop. I'm not that kind of person, but it was interesting to see her come over and speak to the family for about 30 seconds.
There was something else that came up with that same person after she ratted Allie out for not being media, for trying to get a glimpse of the exhibits at the end of the day. Go Allie, I'm team Allie. There was something else she did that was like a Karen-ish type move, and it's like, ladies, sit down, you know. Well, there you go with your drama again, you damn adults and your drama. Why is my child so full of drama? I don't know, drama queen. Let's see. Let me count the ways.
Well, you want to know the funniest thing about that? So the very first day that I showed up in person live was the August 1st hearing. That was the 3 consecutive days of hearings over the pretrial motions. And that day was the third party suspects hearing. But when I get up there, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning. There's only 4 people in line. Murder Sheets is up there, and the gal that used to be on HLN was up there, and a couple other people. Yes, Susan was up there, but they keep looking at me, and they keep looking at me, and I'm just standing there, just minding my own business, just leaning up against the railing, and they're like, "I know you. You're that guy." And I'm like, "No, I am nobody. I'm nobody."
You're that guy.
Yeah, you're that guy. You're that guy on YouTube. And I literally at that point did not have a YouTube channel. I created mine after that.
Oh, wow.
But yes. They thought I was somebody else. They were mistaking me for somebody else. And then when I went to the next hearing after that, or the trial,
I'm trying to figure out in my head, who would they have mistaken Joe for?
I have no idea. Here's where I was going. So I went to opening day of trial. I didn't get in for the first half, but I got in for the second half after lunch, when they kept moving us up and down and up and down and up and down the floors. And then when I got there on the 24th for my next day of trial, she goes, one gal comes up to me and she goes, "You're so polite and you're so nice and you don't have very much to say. You're so quiet." She goes, "There were people here that were convinced that you were Amy from the Carroll County Comment undercover." And I just cracked up. That's like the funniest thing ever. Do I look like an Amy? Do I sound like an Amy?
Yeah. Um,
There's just so much subterfuge and so much like drama that goes on in the true crime world, and then in the content creators that I may one day do like a special on just that, like behind the scenes, like
what it's like to be a content creator.
well, what it's like to observe the content creators
Oh yeah.
doing their whole drama thing against each other and fighting to get into a into
Oh
a
yeah.
trial with only
Uh,
16 seats, like the most high profile trials.
I've
You know,
seen, look, there are YouTubers right now who can't even get into the Delphi trial because they allowed drama to overtake them and show their ass at court in Delphi and get banned from the rest of the proceedings. 2 of them. And they're now out there trolling around the parking lot like, I can't get in, but I'm here. It's like, no, come on. If you're going to bring true crime to your community, bring true crime, and a lot of good, well, a lot of good streams and a lot of streams that had a good potential got lost in Idaho 4. Because if you get lost in one place so long, are you going to be able to find your way out? And that's why looking at the different cases. And when you do look at different cases, you can compare cases and you can start to see patterns of things that aren't right, and how things can be really done, and how there are really, like Jenny even said, there are really good attorneys out there. There are really good judges out there. There's really good police officers out there, great prosecutors and things of that nature. But there's also the bad ones. And we can't pretend they don't exist. We can't pretend everything's, peaches and cream in the world and it's all roses, because there's going to be the thorns, and they're there. We saw Alex Murdaugh, the rise and fall of that little dynasty over there. What were they? Attorneys, the whole family, who, and a lot of times it's like that, and you can't help it. Know which cases are and aren't going to be like that, and ones that are, when they begin to look like that and you try to shed light on that, they want to say, oh, you're drama, or oh, you just, they're this and they're that. I've heard all the things said about the Idaho 4 creators, about the Delphi creators, and then they all want to turn and fight on each other. And it's like, I'm so turned off by that. I'll leave a case because of it, and I have, Idaho and Delphi both times. I've come back because of my own curiosity about the actual cases, but I could do without all that crazy drama. If they can get in there, the ones that are getting in there right now, thank God they're the ones getting in, because they are coming out at the end of the day and presenting things fairly without some crazy YouTube drama behind it. I probably wouldn't watch if it was like that.
no, no. If it turned into a couple of the other cases and the drama that goes on in those, where it's just content creators becoming the news, becoming the content.
Yeah, I don't like that. What's the point? I didn't, that you weren't a part of it a minute ago. Now all of a sudden you're the biggest part of it. It's like, what is wrong with that picture, right?
Bye-bye. See you later.
Yeah, I get turned off. Like,
all right, let's finish these preliminary instructions. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this one more time, because this is my favorite part of the day so far. If the evidence lends itself to 2 reasonable interpretations, you must choose the interpretation consistent with the defendant's innocence. That's huge in this case. Huge, and probably in a couple of other too, like Kohberger. Definitely not the other one you're going to talk about today. Defendant is not required to present any evidence to prove his innocence or to prove or explain anything. The state has the burden of proving the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is proof that leaves you firmly convinced of the defendant's guilt. That's pretty big because we've seen in a couple of recent trials that language does change from state to state. Like the
It
one in
does.
Massachusetts, for the Karen Reed trial was stated differently, I do believe. And Hannah Gutierrez, I believe, was stated differently, and probably Chad Daybell, I believe that was stated differently, which it didn't really matter. But
Still, you're right though, because the language does change from state to state, and so your jury instructions may vary a little. So it's important to get to know the ones here in Indiana because they're the ones that are going to matter.
There are very few things in this world that we know with absolute certainty. And in criminal cases, the law does not require proof that overcomes every possible doubt. If based on your consideration of the evidence, you are firmly convinced, once again, the same phrase, firmly convinced that the defendant is guilty of the crime charged, you may find him guilty. It doesn't say shall, it says may, and that is a very, very important legal distinction. You may find him guilty. That's interesting. Yeah. Wow.
So they may consider that all of the evidence the state presented, if they were all in agreement that, yeah, it looks like he could have been the guy, they could say yeah. But I don't think it's going to be like that. I think there'll be at least a few. I honestly can't get a really honest read because I'm not there. I can only base it like the rest of us can on what we're being told as far as the way the jury reactions have been and their questions. And I feel like Andrea and Bob have tried to do a good job of showing us what the jury was like. And I think, Lauren's give us a few good takes on the jury, and so has Lee. But if you listen to all of them, and kind of collectively put it together with them, I'm getting the same sense with this jury. They're asking a lot of questions because there are a lot of questions, valid questions that might help them get there. And those points they've asked these questions on, you can bet are going to be top of the deliberation in that deliberation room.
Yeah, and the thing about me being in person and seeing that jury twice is there is one particular juror that I'm worried about that was attentive from time to time, but was definitely unattentive from time to time. And I'm just trying to figure out, just as an everyday Joe Schmo, there it is. I'm an everyday Joe Schmo. What is going through his head when he's sitting there, when there's testimony going on the stand, and he's kind of looking around the gallery? Like, he actually made eye contact with me one time, I think. Obviously, I don't know for sure because I wasn't looking through his eyes, but he's just like disinterested from time to time. Does he think, I got this? I'm just going to go with the flow of the rest of the jury, or I'm going to be pain in the ass when we come to deliberations, and I'm going to be contrary. I'm going to be a contrarian to everything that comes up in the jury. Like, I don't know what he's thinking, because he's one of the note takers, but he's not a consistent note taker. Like that one day in court, the 24th, I took 35 pages of notes, and he probably took 2. So,
oh, wow. Yeah, because we hear that some jurors are way better at note taking than others. So he could either, like you said, he could just sit there and think, okay, well, I got this, and whatever the consensus, I'll go with the flow. I'm not going to get back there and cause trouble and be the one to be go against the crowd and all the things. Like, maybe he's really confused and don't know what to think at this point. So it's just like
he was an intelligent, he was a decently intelligent and capable looking human being. I wouldn't say like genius level of intelligence, but he was definitely fully aware of what was going on in the courtroom, and fully aware that he should be, like, at least appear to be taking notes from time to time, and appear to be paying attention to the testimony from time to time. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't. Is he already planning his book deal? Is he planning his interview deal? I don't know.
Right. It could go either way with this person. You don't know if they're being 100% I'm listening to everything and going to take it exactly for face value, or I'll vote whatever way. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So,
And
but that's 2 days of observation. Well, a day and a half technically. I missed the first half of the first day, but a day and a half of observation, I found a consistent pattern of behavior with that particular juror. That doesn't worry me. It just like it makes me question like what direction he's going to go when they head to deliberations.
And we also have to consider there's so many things the jury has heard, but there's things that go with those things that they haven't heard, like Brad Weber. A lot of us who have followed the case for the 2 years and know the backstory, we all knew who that was. We've all known his property was searched. We've all known they did take his weapon, and we also now have learned through trial they couldn't exclude his weapon. And now here he is again. He's taken the witness stand not once but twice. Now the defense has called him back, and all of a sudden now he's in a white van and he startled Rick Allen, according to the state's theory. It's just, there's a lot of things that there's really not a lot of things, honestly. If you look at it, at the totality of their state's case, in my opinion, there's not a lot there. Not any more than I've already known. He said he was there that day. He drove a black Ford Focus. Pretty much we've known that since day one. Y'all did anyway. Y'all did. And
he owned a 40 caliber Sig Sauer.
And the gun. Yeah, he owned a gun that same type that many other men in Indiana, come to find out, own. And those out there for a while too. And we already had learned about the conditions. And another thing, all that testimony in that one day of all these prison guards, where was Mr. Randy Jones and why wasn't he called to the stand? We have an affidavit signed by him saying, I am not an Odinist, although I wear an Odinist patch on my uniform. Now I'm going to take it off because I was court ordered. Hold my beers. I'm going to go out and get me a tattoo on my face now and wear that to work instead. Where was he at during all this testimony? I guess the defense couldn't call him because that would have brought in Odinism, which is something they're not allowed to do.
Ooh, so why didn't the defense call him?
Because they couldn't. So that's my theory right now. I'm thinking that.
Oh.
If they brought Randy Jones in, the only reason I'm going to bring you in now is that I already got testimony on how my client was treated with your camcorders and all your things here. But you also camcordered you also videotaped my client, and you were wearing these patches. Can you elaborate on what these patches were? Then I don't got to bring up the Odinism. The witness does. How can we go, ooh, could we have done that? Can we do that on appeal? Oh, wait a minute. They're saving their Odinism for appeal. I don't know. Where's Mr. Jones? I got it.
But if he was a correctional officer, wow. I wonder if they just worked really hard on trying to figure out a way to bring him in and they just never could because of gold just like pretty much blocks everything,
Well, he was one of the two, okay, of the bill. When the defense brought it out that there were two guards there wearing Odinist patches. One of them was Mr. Jones. It's in the affidavit. I have it somewhere, but I don't think I got it saved to the PC. I'll have to get that to show later on our next show. I can make a note to get that.
You want to show it now? Because if you give me 10 seconds, I've got it.
Yeah, do that if you got it. And we'll look at that because this is the and so then they got into trouble and all the things. They were court ordered to take the patches off. So he did. And then he went and got one he got the tattoo and let me get Joe's screen up here. So then his TikTok account shows, loud and proud who he was, what he was, part of the Heathens of Indiana. There's also this weightlifting thing they get into with their heathenry, they call it. Yeah, all the things. Joe, while you start to read that, I'm going to go freshen up my coffee.
Okay. So here's the affidavit from Sergeant Randy Jones, a correctional officer at the Westville Correctional Facility, which is part of the Indiana Department of Correction. Is it correction or corrections? Ooh, I need to research that. It's probably correction. That seems more correct, but I've always said corrections. I am a correctional officer at Westville Correctional Facility. I have been assigned, oops, that scrolls down too fast. I have been assigned to the Westville Correctional Unit, WC Unit of Westville Correctional Facility since December 11, 2022. I'm currently assigned to the B pod. I have been an acting supervisor in A pod, where the defendant is housed since last February/early March of 2023. Okay, so he started out in B pod and then he got promoted to supervisor in A pod. I do not practice Odinism, Norse paganism. Heathenry is my practicing religion. I do wear patches on my uniform that identify me as someone who practices Norse paganism heathenry, so not Odinism. I started wearing the patches 6 or 7 months ago. I did not stop wearing my patches until September 22nd of 2023, which is, as we discussed previously, I believe, well after the confessions. So he started in February, March 2023 and stopped in September of 2023. And weren't the confessions in April of 2023?
Yep.
So immediately after he became the supervisor in the A pod where the defendant is housed, within a month of that. The patches do not represent racism or hatred for anyone. I am not a part of a cult. I am not part of a radical hate group. The patches show my dedication to my faith and to my country. Wait, Norse heathenry? Norse heathenry is dedication to the United States of America? How? Anyway, I interacted with the defendant. Oh, the defendant is filmed with a handheld camera. That came into court. I interacted with the defendant.
See? So you got Mr. Jones talking about videotaping the defendant.
Yeah, which was allowed into court. The handheld camera evidence was allowed in.
Yeah, and Jenny's was wondering if was Mr. Jones in any of the video footage. That's a good question. We don't get to see it, so we can't look for him. I don't know if any of the Mata might know what Randy looks like. The other ones I'm not so sure about. The attorneys probably not. They haven't deep dove like we have. But yeah. So,
Yeah.
So
things
what?
Okay, go home.
And then you got to look. To me, it was like, okay, so everybody questioned why you sent this man off to prison immediately versus county jail. We heard all your reasons, safe orders and all that for his safety. When you got several county jails around you, none of them could accommodate. The only place to send him was to prison. Lo and behold, oh, you mean the stuff the FBI investigated? The agency that Doug Carter kicked out? It makes sense. It's starting to. I got magic hands too, Doug. Ooh, I need to get a crystal ball, don't I? Like the magic hands. He has a tattoo on his face, so he probably spotted. Yeah, you could probably spot him. It's a small tattoo right under his eye. I'd put pictures out there, but he's, I don't want to get no.
Item 12, I interacted with the defendant when I was in charge of holding the handheld camera. So he was in charge. How did the defense not call this guy who was holding the handheld camera?
and
Oh my
and
gosh.
wearing Odinist patches. That was a little much. That's a little. I mean, like
This you've opened a door that I have
their side.
not.
You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah,
what?
you
Checkmate.
opened a door that I haven't thought about before. This affidavit and the fact that he was the one holding the handheld camera to record that video. There must have been something there that the defense didn't want to open that door.
There's
There must have
something.
been something.
It's got to be something, Joe, because when I was sitting here looking the other night, because I haven't been real active anywhere over the last couple days, and yesterday I was like a tired day for me. I slept a lot, but I've been going over my notes and different, just I ponder things, and I'm like, look, that was a lot of correctional officers came in and testified to Mr. Allen's state while he was there. And I even made a note of it, like Andrea says, a margin note here. And it was like, dude, they got, let's see, Ethan Drang, Michael Roberts, John Miller, James Early, Brandon Fisher, Raymond Smith, and Jason Bedwell. These are all Jones, Mr. Randy Jones, because he's been a player all along, but now all of a sudden he's not, kind of like Doug Carter, until he was forced to come in and talk about how he sent the FBI packing. That's solely the reason why he was brought in to testify. We ain't got no other further questions for you, Magic Hands. Get out. Except for when did you tell the FBI to leave? Could you elaborate on why? That might have opened the door for your third-party defense. If Doug Carter himself could have brought that shit into court.
Right. Yep.
Tell me why you didn't want the FBI around anymore. That's a big question. Because what if their investigation could actually lead to the right perpetrator or perpetrators?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I just skipped down, my eyes skipped down to item number 20.
Go ahead and finish reading, Joe. I'm sorry. I'll stop interrupting. I wanted you to let you get through this.
I was assigned periodically to check on the defendant at his door with his 15-minute checks. During door checks, I would walk to the defendant's cell, make sure he's okay and not at risk of self-harm. Okay, in 15 minutes, he could be dead. So, all right, whatever. I never threatened the defendant. I have never had a one-on-one conversation with the defendant about Odinism. Okay, hold on a second here. You just said you're not an Odinist. So did you have a conversation with the defendant about Norse paganism heathenry? Did you ever have a conversation with the defendant about blood sacrifices? That is a very specific statement.
Yes, it is. And if you're okay, so if you want Rick Allen to confess to things, and he's not an Odinist, Rick Allen is not an Odinist, can't be tied to it. It has nothing to do with Odinism. People look the other way. You want that person to be believable. You don't want him tied to your Odinism because it's going to make y'all all look bad, Doug Carter. So do we just go with the flow here and pin this on this guy? They should have known better because they had 5 years of the world is watching.
Well, and
I just don't think they realized who all was watching.
And if you are somebody who, let's take the worst possible scenario where Randy Jones is an evil worshiper of Norse paganism heathenry, or follower of Norse paganism heathenry, and that involves blood sacrifices, and he knows who committed the crimes against the girls, and Rick Allen gets sent to him intentionally so he can abuse him and put him in shackles and threaten him into confessing. Let's take that worst possible scenario. And I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying let's speculate.
It's been speculated.
If you have to go and give an affidavit your attorney or whoever is advising you is going to tell you to say exactly what you said on line item 16. I have never had a one-on-one conversation with the defendant about Odinism. And 17, I do not know anything about the practice of Odinism. Holy crap. That's it. You say that and you don't get probed on that anymore. Like, did he have a deposition? Was there ever a Randy Jones deposition?
That's a really good question. I'll have to ask Sleuthy if she knows, because I don't even know if that's going to be in her. Could be in her spreadsheet. I haven't looked at it in a hot minute. She's got a couple. So that I've,
He
gosh,
does say I had item 18. I will say this. He states under oath, I have never had a one-on-one conversation with the defendant where I try to influence him in any way, which is a very subjective way to phrase something, but
why would you say that?
Yeah. I
We're
have
talking
gone.
about wearing your patches and getting your patches off. So where's this conversation about that? Jones was deposed April 18th, according to All Eyes. Do you have that document, All Eyes? I mean, in your file? I know you got your I haven't visited that in a while. She's got some great files going on there and different things she's trying to achieve with that. Actually, there's some good stuff out there. Some of you guys have put a lot of hard work into documenting the things of this case.
Absolutely. And All Eyes is right up there among the
Yeah, oh yeah,
top of
definitely,
those. Yep.
definitely. She is one of my go-to resources. Sleuthy, as usual. She's was the first place I ever, went to a spreadsheet with Idaho for. And then she did the same thing with
All right. So,
and we have the places who are documenting all the things that they can. And I know that the other day Criminality, I think, did one with just like the evidence, you know what I mean? And I think I saved the link to that so we could all go over it again, but we haven't had time. No
All Eyes,
deposition.
I'm curious if Jones was deposed by the state or by the defense. I'm assuming the defense because the state didn't hardly depose anybody.
Right?
But if the defense deposed him, I'm really, really curious why they didn't call him. I'm really curious because that would be so close to opening the door to the third party nexus. So
So
close.
close, right? As close as you could get besides, that's as close as you get actually because of the patches wearing by the guard. That's a neck. So you didn't accuse my client of being odinous, but we know the investigation looked at that at one point. Now you got him going to prison where, lo and behold, these guards work. You can't tell me that wasn't a setup
Well, yeah,
designed
that's
to get
what
to
the
this
state's telling
confession.
you. That's what the state's telling you, and that's what the state's telling the defense. I mean, not the defense, the jury.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
jury has to decide what they're going to believe,
Well, the
and they're
jury's
not
already asked good questions about that, about county jail versus a prison.
right.
And the
But
standard that you would normally follow. They asked some pretty good technical questions about that, I think that the jury already is having a hard time understanding why he was sent to a prison versus a county jail. I think that's going to be their first red flag. They're not going to know about Mr. Jones here and his patches and all the things that we know.
right,
Prison.
which
They have seen the documentation of his treatment and his demise over the time under the conditions. Do you feel like that has any weight?
I think with the excellent witness that the defense brought in yesterday, I believe that there will be intelligent jurors who put a good deal of weight on that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Could you imagine just having that little bit of skepticism? You're not quite sure, but the evidence is not showing you beyond reasonable doubt, because there is some reasonable doubt. What would you do as a juror? Is that what Casey Anthony jurors were left with? You know what I mean? Will it be that way with this case? It can go either way. In my opinion, from what I've seen based on evidence, I would have a hard time convicting Richard Allen beyond a reasonable doubt. If I was a juror, reasonable doubt's been brought into my mind. On a technical evidence side, your cameras, the video itself of Bridge Guy, I don't feel like that was explained well by either side. Maybe less well. And nobody's back there. Next minute, there he is. We did this and that. I think all these questions are going to stack up.
Yeah, I'm just going to share one more thing from this affidavit, which cracks me up.
Oh, go ahead.
Item number 20. There have been times when I have gone above and beyond. I have gone above and beyond. He doesn't say above and beyond what. He just says, I have gone above and beyond in order to be gentler with the defendant to prevent him from being tased. What an angel. What an angel of a prison supervisor.
Dude, isn't that crazy to read that? It's crazy to state that. I mean, we already said some bizarre statements that you didn't need to say, but now you've went out of your way to be good to this. Like, don't y'all live for that stuff?
And so we're going down to 21 now, despite the fact that he went above and beyond above and beyond the call of duty, above and beyond the call of decency, human decency, he must be a great human being. Despite the fact that he went above and beyond, the defendant was tased twice between May 9th and May 25th of 2023 because he would not comply. This says, we could not get him to comply with the order. So he was tased twice in May.
Okay, so wasn't that talked about in the testimony?
Right? I do remember hearing about him being tased once. I don't remember hearing about him being tased twice.
Is that Mr. Jones in the video doing the tasing? Jenny, you might have been onto something when you asked, can he be seen in the videos? If you can be seen in that video now, I'm calling you to the stand. You done, there's input, like, it's right there. Questions. Damn it. Why did, okay, is this just a missed opportunity, or legally could they not pursue Mr. Jones because of the Odinism bullshit? Or what are we missing? Would you save Mr. Jones for appeal? Because you know you're coming with an appeal. It's coming, like day one. Richard Allen's found guilty. The appeal's being filed the next damn day. I may be exaggerating, but y'all know what I mean. They've already went on the record on purpose, the defense has, on purpose, to set up further appeal. Like trying to get Gull removed and asking for her to recuse herself. No, I'm not. Okay, fine, but at least we got it on the record now that we asked. All the things they've done. Yeah, it's Gull and Nick. Well, Gull and Nick's got TikTok. You can only ride that train for so long.
They're not even yin and yang though, because they're so similar to each other. They're like double negatives. That's what they are. They're double negatives in this.
Well, and then so the defense was they didn't get to call the metallurgist they wanted to call in, which would have been interesting to hear from if you read what that person would have testified on. Because we deep dove that stuff because of the sheath, bronze buttons, and all the different metals. You know, there's things you can look at as far as evidence recovery and all that stuff. So, you know, listening to those experts alone on the bullet extraction marks, you know, that's a huge deal because that's the only physical piece of evidence you have that can tie Richard Allen to the scene is your unspent round. according to the prosecution, we all know, found right there between the girls at their feet, came from Rick Allen's gun, according to them. Now, in the confession they're relying heavily on, he says he did something with the gun still at the south end of the bridge and then ordered the girls down the hill. Everybody's like, oh, that's when the bullet fell out. Well, then, no, we all know better. If he messed with the gun, it's going to fall out right there. Could you find it? I mean, shit, it's what, 60 feet down, Joe, from the bridge to the ground?
Oh
Did
yeah, at
they
least.
go
Yeah, yeah,
back
yeah.
and look for a bullet? Once you got that confession, would you have went back with your metal detectors and tried real hard to find it? I would have, but this is them, so doubtful. They'd have been like,
No,
too much time. Too much
but
time's passed now.
if I had a metal detector, it's going to be going off like every 5 inches in there on a railroad bed with all those old railroad
Well,
spikes and
yeah, but
nails and stuff.
if
But
I'm
I would have
trying to
looked. But I would have
match,
looked. I would have at least looked. Yes.
yeah, if I'm an investigator, I'm fixing to tear at the bottom of that bridge up on the
Yep.
ground, trying to find whatever. Because if he did do something right then and there, and a bullet fell out, could they match that unspent round to the other unspent rat test? There's just like we they're I tried to give their expert the benefit of the doubt. What I read their testimony was, and my interpretation of what their testimony was, they failed to prove that bullet came from that gun. There's no way to prove that to me, especially when you did different types of tests to determine. You fired it, 6 times before it matched? And that's the difference between a fired round and an unspent round. So if you're looking at just the damn evidence walking into that jury room, this is the stuff you're looking at. You're looking at that video. How accurate is that video? Was it taken when they said it was taken? Is that the voice we hear of the man we see on camera? That's the kind of stuff they're having to talk about. Do we believe that bullet really came from that man's gun? Can we believe that? Those are the things. Can we believe those screenshots of a car? Because nobody clearly ID'd that Rick Allen's car for being there at that particular time.
Check this out. So I'm gonna finish up this affidavit because it's on the screen still, and we only have like 2 more points to go through. But I actually have
go ahead.
I actually have 3 points. So
all right,
I'm going to start with 23 with his last statement. I have been employed with the Department of Corrections since April 4th of 2022. So that's April, May, June, July, August, September, October, like 5-6 months before before Kathy Shanks finds that lead sheet in her drawer that got misfiled, and Rick Allen gets investigated, interrogated, arrested. They perform a search warrant on his property, and he gets transferred under a safekeeping order. So this is just like 5 or 6 months before that. But look at this, number 22. I have never had an excessive force complaint filed against me while I have been employed at the Westville Correctional Facility. He doesn't say in my life ever, in my career ever. He just says, while I have been employed for the last year-ish, I haven't had any excessive force complaints filed against me in the last year. And that's his affidavit. That is the wrapping point of his affidavit. But get this, I know about affidavits. I've signed a few affidavits myself. And when you have an affidavit, you need it notarized. You get an affidavit notarized by notary public that says, I know this person to be who they are and who signed this under their voluntary act. This is not notarized. This is not a valid affidavit. I'm sorry.
Uh-oh.
It's not notarized. It's not a valid affidavit. We don't know that Randy Jones signed this, but he could have, because the language in it is very evasive.
Where is Mr. Jones then, if he could have signed it? All right, we're going to have to put him on the appeals list for witnesses. Something's happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. Um, excuse me. So, yeah, there's a lot to be said about that whole Mr. Jones thing, and the guards. And people want to say that, that's a crazy story you people are telling out there, trying to make everybody believe this and that. Well, no, it's like, it's real, it's legit. Not only was the Frank's motion come out and telling you it was legit, people who live in the area have seen these groups when they're out and about. People on YouTube have seen them. Damn, the attorney that replaced the attorneys that were kicked off, he saw it, right there in town as well. Then you got the guards are now wearing the patches. Like, don't tell us it's not real. Quit doing that. Stop insulting our intelligence. It's not a made up, tunnel theory or some far fetched stuff. And even if it was, more power to them people, but that's not this. That's not this. It's crazy. So, and goes back to I don't know. I feel like their investigation was not a good, thorough investigation.
That's the understatement of the year.
But they have failed to prove it. You know what I mean? They have
Right.
failed it.
No, the investigation was crap.
It really is. And they failed their victims in that. Y'all want to say the only, I mean law enforcement, especially in this case, it's all about their victims, the victims, and it should be. But you failed them. You put this song and dance out there for 5 years about all the things and one day you'll know, and we can't wait to share with you stuff and all this craziness. Do you got some DNA? Do you don't? Secrecy and all the things, and you can insert a crazy judge who's, oh my God. It's like all this stuff. It's insane. So your evidence is not that great, though. You got like I said, the jury is going to be deliberating that video and the audio and that phone data of what Libby's phone was doing out there in the woods versus what it wasn't doing. Either that phone was, moving around all by itself, or somebody was messing with that phone. And you can't chalk it all up to bad reception. The phone was pinging in and out. I could have bought that. I honestly could have bought that, especially after seeing Joe go there live just recently and saw the in and out that he was experiencing. But we continue to hear oddities about Libby's phone. Now we're hearing from the defense expert that phone was so headphones allegedly were plugged in at 5:45 p.m. and unplugged at 10:32. Now, there was also talk out there about how so Cecil Googled it. He came back on the stand. Apparently, they called him back up there and asked him about this. And he didn't know about it, but couldn't explain it, from my understanding, and determined, like, from a Google search that he just did, and he got called out for doing a Google search in an investigation. But like a speck of water or a speck of dirt, get up into your port, could confuse the port and make it think something's plugged in when it's not. Okay, I can almost buy that. But water, it's going to be wet and it's going to take time to dry out. If mine got damp one day because it was light rain, and I had to put it in front of the car air conditioner blowing out hard into the port, and it dried it up in no time. It wouldn't take a charge. Then all of a sudden it did, and it was fine once I got it to dry out. And I was I gotta be super careful now with these damn sensitive ass phones. But there could be a lot of things that explain what Libby's phone was doing, but there's so many things that phone was doing. My God.
So let's explore that theory just for
Go ahead.
30 seconds. Let's say it was Rick Allen, as the state says. Let's say that Libby recorded the 43-second video, and I've heard multiple times that there was 2 minutes more of video that was shown to the families that we never got to see, and I'm really, really curious about that. But let's just say, go ahead.
So 2 minutes more, but they still only brought 43 seconds into court.
Right, both sides did. So did that mean
Yeah,
that the state withheld something from the defense, or does that mean the defense didn't want to show that 2 minutes? I don't know.
Yeah, because
So
if there's more, there's going to. I always wondered if there were things that we don't really need to hear.
yeah, well, I think maybe that 2 minutes was after the
But
actual
then
video
again,
was done. I think she stuck the
yeah,
phone in her pocket, so it was really just
hmm
audio. It was
yeah,
just audio of them going quote unquote down the hill. So say worst case scenario, let's go along with the state's conspiracy theory or not conspiracy theory, the state's theory about this, how this was enacted. They go down the hill, then they go down the second hill. So the first hill gets you down to the private drive that goes to Weber's house or goes out to the county road, east or west, southeast or southwest. Go down the second hill along the railroad tracks, and you have to go the exact route that I went. You cannot slide down that hill in February without getting totally muddy and dirty and injured, and maybe even being able to run away from a bad guy with a gun. They didn't go down the steep banks. They went down that more gentle slope that I walked down, parallel with the railroad tracks or the old railroad trestle. So you get down there, you walk the path that I walked, you get to the creek. The creek is 3 to 3.5 feet high, depending on where you're at. You walk across the sandbars first. It's shallower across the sandbars. She's got it in her pocket. Then they go across the deeper part, and the phone gets wet. The phone gets wet. I made notes at 5:44 p.m.
5:44.
5:44 p.m.
Okay, because they're saying 5:45 is when it was plugged into a
Yes.
headphone, a jack.
Well,
Or,
okay, so yes, 5:45 p.m. There was a 3.5 millimeter plug-in jack interaction, but at
Mhm.
5:44 there was an incoming call.
Wait a minute. At 5 what? It says 5:44.
At 5:44 there was an incoming call, and at 5:45 there was a 3.5 millimeter audio jack interaction.
Okay, yeah, that's the so. See, this phone's doing weird stuff.
Yes, and if it's wet, if she walks across the creek with the phone in her
It's not
pocket,
going to ring, right?
no. Well, say it gets wet and it gives a wet phone error.
Yeah,
What do most of us do? We go and throw our phone in a bucket of rice, in a bag
yeah,
of rice, whatever, to dry it out, right? Or do what you did. She
right.
didn't do that.
Mm-mm.
Her wet phone is not getting put in rice. It's not getting put up
It's
to
not going to dry
a
out
heater.
yeah,
No.
it's
And
not
it's
going to
not
dry out
going to
efficiently enough to start.
No, and it's not going to turn on at 4:33 the next morning.
Yeah,
It's wet.
I
It's
thought about that.
done.
And
It's
it's
dead.
under a body, and
Yes.
trigger warning about the things we talk about, guys. You know that it's under a body. We've known from the images that clothing was wet, so it's still exposed to very cold, damp conditions, not drying out. You know, um,
He
that was
said,
always a problem when I heard that too.
that's
No,
your son saying, "Can I come home for lunch?"
no, he's no, he needs no. He's a good hour and a half for me. He's like good. He's probably got to go to work in a little while. He normally gets out of school like an hour early because he is in like the smart kids program. He gets out of school early and he goes to his job. It's part of his work or school thingy. So he's got out a little bit earlier today. He's not into the rah rah pep squad people stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what's been blowing up my phone? Can I just rant for a minute? Oh my God. There was I don't get cell phone calls. Nobody calls me. Like, it's for my kids, right? Like, my phone hardly ever rang. All it's done for weeks is just blow up one call behind the other, all the same calls. No matter what I do, if I block them, I started cussing them out. I accused them of being a bot, and then the lady's like, "I may sound like I'm not a real person, but I promise you I am." Like, no, you're not, lady. You're a fucking computer. I can't stand it. They're trying to sell me stuff I don't need, y'all. It was irritating. What's going on all of a sudden? All right, rants over about phone.
Okay.
We
You
need
know,
to. They
you know
might
the
change my
problem.
phone number.
Yeah,
But go ahead.
you know the problem with him being in the smart student class is the expectations are so much higher.
I
It's
try
like
not to push too much on him, though.
no,
He's
no, no,
been in it.
not from
Oh,
you, not from
oh,
you,
okay.
but from the school. Like, hey, we're putting you in this class. We expect you to get an A. It's like when I go to the gym, and I haven't been to the gym in a little bit. I'm not going to say how
Yeah,
long, but the weights, when you get into the gym, the weights are heavy. Like you have to lift them up and put
yeah.
them down and lift them up and put them down.
He's never. Yeah, he's been doing it since second grade, and he's in 10th grade now. Yeah, and he's never ever acted like it was a pressure. Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yes.
I tried to watch for that kind of stuff because he's not like a super nerdy kid. He's kind of the opposite to me, but he loves those classes. He always has. And I'm like, okay, whatever, kiddo. The other day they just went and did a whole tour of the FSU. It's not that far, so they went on a whole complete college tour. Show them what the big college was like and all the things. So hopefully it'll lead him in a good direction. Maybe you know, let him go choose what he wants to do. This kid wants to travel and like leave me, so I don't know what's gonna happen.
Oh no. Oh no. Don't leave
Yeah,
mom.
he likes to travel. I can see it. My other kids are good to staying at home working and having babies, but this one I don't think it's gonna fly with him.
Yeah. You know what my advice was after I figured out what it should have been to my boys was always leave as many doors open as possible.
Hmm.
Like don't shut doors. Just
Oh yeah,
you don't know in 20 years you may not like what you pick to do in 10 years or in 5 years. So just leave as many doors open as possible and explore as many options as possible till you figure it
yeah.
out.
I've always if they're gonna go to college, if you're gonna put that time and effort in, do something you love and enjoy. Don't go do it because you know you can earn money. You're doing it for all the wrong reasons, in my opinion, at that point. Yeah, we all need money, duh. We gotta have it to live, unfortunately. But go make sure you like what you're doing. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, or you're gonna want to get up and go do it every day, I don't want to be that kind of miserable person. I gotta go do this. I'll be like, no, I don't want to go do that. Screw that.
Right. And I think the Chinese proverb is something like if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yes, right. I don't care if it's the medical field, if you love taking care of people, if you like defending people, go be an attorney. I don't care if you just like being a cashier because you enjoy helping people at the grocery store. Like what you do. Don't be taking your misery to work with you and all vice versa. Don't go give work 110% of you and go home and give everything else much less. I mean, that's like bad. Don't get caught up in that, people. That's just end of rant on all that. Anyway, back to the phone, people. We'll have a whole other stream on the other shit on how to live a happy head life. Happy head life. Don't let the bullshit in. Anyway, this is some bullshit. All this phone stuff. Like, we get a really good expert. They ask good questions. Like, it's been brought up about the drive time. FBI drive time is a simple thing. There is a device they use. They can literally put it in the car in the back seat. They have there's all kind of gauges where you calibrate it. We know this because of the Chad Daybell trial. Is going to be talked about in the Bryan Kohberger trial. Here it is, not over here. It all being used in Delphi. Why? Probably because we don't got the FBI anymore. Drive time. They put the car and they gauge how well the cell phone towers are working in any given area. They can tell that you map out the entire drive, the distance, the timing, where your phone is pinging, when it's not, when it's showing me out of range, when I'm really, all the things it shows. They didn't do that over in Delphi. So there was no accurate record of what a tower could have a phone do in the area. Instead, we have YouTubers, people in the area going and showing us. We have Mr. Steve out there doing experiments. We got Delphi Police Department out there doing some kind of crazy geofencing magic that we can't see now that shows what? We don't even know because we didn't get to see the geofencing evidence. Who the hell knows what that crazy shit would have shown at this point when we got all this other stuff happening. And now Joe's saying it said it was getting a phone call at 5:44, and now we got to plug into some headphones at 5:45, a minute later. And then it was unplugged at 10:30, and then Joe was like 4:30 when the phone came back on the next morning. I'm looking at chat. Yeah, I think it was 4:30 the next morning when the phone came back on and the flood of text messages came through.
Well, this leads us to another area of incompetence in the investigation, because when they first booted up Libby's phone in the first 3 days of the investigation, they erased that data by not having that phone in a Faraday bag.
Right.
They overwrote it. So we don't know what that phone power level was. We don't know if there was potential geographic data in that. I mean, there were facts that were lost in that because of the missteps in the investigation immediately after the fact.
Yeah. We have talked about the Faraday bags over in the Bryan Kohberger case for months because if you follow the case, allegedly the phone can be pinged from the time it leaves that apartment where he lived going toward Moscow, Idaho, and then it's gone for 2 hours. Allegedly, according to state's theory, it's either turned off or placed in airplane mode. Hey, Sleuthy. And different things, and questions that what kind of evidence can be legally collected on us going forward with some of these cases, what will change and things like that. But this phone stuff is crazy because it's going to be heavily used in the Kohberger case. Whether or not that phone was on or off was a big deal. Was it placed in a Faraday bag to hide the signal? Everybody knows he was in criminology and all of this. Now we're hearing in this case it should have been put into one to preserve the phone. And all these things should have been done to it. And I had questions about these experts from the state, like they're all like state police. I'm like, but are we talking, what's their background as far as, thorough background in some of this, like phone data? And the people who could have brought you all the business, y'all didn't want nothing to do with them. And I don't understand why.
Yeah, and that's funny because that does relate to the Richard Allen case, because we heard about that yesterday where the defense's witness does not have extensive experience testifying about the results of her investigations, of her extractions, of her analysis of the extractions. And so Nick McClelland hammered on that on cross. He's like, so how many times have you testified? 4 times. So how many times have you testified about the C whatever it was database? Gosh darn it. I know what that is, but I don't know right now off the top of my head. But how many times have you testified about that? Well, I haven't before. This is my first time. So Nick McClelland is poking at her credibility by the fact that she hasn't actually testified to this, even though she has been doing it for, 17, 18 years. And I mean, it's a valid thought, and it's something that may impact the jurors' beliefs on the credibility of her analysis. But I honestly think, based on the way that Bob testified last night, I honestly think she was a very credible witness, but so was the state's witness. So it's one versus the other. So it comes down to the jury instructions when it's one versus the other and you don't know which one to put weight on, you are supposed to put that on the side in the scales of justice. You're supposed to put that on the side of the defendant. If you have two witnesses that you kind of equally believe or do not believe one absolutely more than the other, it's not, if it's not convincing, it's supposed to go towards the defendant.
Well, and the thing about being a juror versus being us, we have the ability to look at things they do not, like these witnesses, or the experts rather. Knowing a bit about their background is important. When they're going to get up on the stand, you're going to hear that little 2-minute spill about who they are and where their education. But if you look at them and their records, like who's more believable, whatever you want to call it, more knowledgeable. And then if you look at the things like certain experts are, what they can and cannot do. When I heard the testimony, and I'm listening to what I'm hearing they were saying, it's not jiving with the things I know I've heard in other testimonies and other trials. And you're going to have a real hard time disputing some of that FBI stuff. Again, I'm going to have to go back to the Kohberger case. They're like, oh, Cy-Ray. Well, I know who Cy-Ray is. I also know he's a podcaster. He's a likable guy. His wife is a nice lady as well. They host a great little show. I've watched it a couple times. But look at his background. He doesn't know much more than the FBI guys do. They kind of like know of each other. They used to work together. Then I also see issues with this stuff, with the programs that he uses, but also see issues with the stuff the FBI uses, right? So again, you got to weigh against which expert comes across as more knowledgeable about what they're talking about. And when you get a witness up there who's got to Google stuff, or a lot of I don't recalls, or I don't know how I got to that conclusion. If you got too many unanswered questions, I already don't know if I can trust you as a witness. And that's the only thing the jury can go by sometimes, because they don't have what I have at my fingertips to look this stuff up, to know who their background is and the things about them. It's going to be interesting in Idaho when that phone stuff comes up again, and you got Cy-Ray going against, if they bring up the same FBI guy that testified in Chad Daybell's trial. Good luck. I don't know how that's going to play out.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, because there's a lot they can do with these phone, and the fact that this one's got so many unanswered questions is crazy.
It is. And I love the fact that I found that quote in the jury instructions, and I hope it's in there again for the final jury instructions. If the evidence lends itself to two different, and I'm putting different in there, that's not in the instructions, I'm saying different so we can understand what I'm saying better. If the evidence lends itself to two different reasonable interpretations, you must choose the interpretation consistent with the defendant's innocence.
Yep.
I don't know if I've seen that in jury instructions before.
Oh, see, in Florida, man, I guess the stuff I'm used to here, I have to keep reminding myself they don't get that same in every other state. But that was, like I said, when I said the jury instructions were hit home in Casey Anthony, that's the kind of language I'm talking about. It's that language that and what's reasonable. Your reasonable and my reasonable may be very different reasonables, but they have not proven anything beyond a reasonable doubt. I have reasonable doubt what you're telling me is true. And Sleuthy, if you're still in here and can hear me, we had a whole conversation about Mr. Jones, Mr. Randy Jones. Where is he, girl? Like, why wasn't he called? What's your theory on why he wasn't called to testify, at least for the defense to question? I don't know. I've got thoughts on that. So I'd love your input. So hit me up and let me know something. Maybe work something out and have a conversation.
Yeah, according to all eyes, he was deposed, and we know based upon the fact that the defense deposed about 80 people and the state deposed about 2 people that he was probably deposed by the defense. which begs the question, if the defense deposed him, why didn't they call him to the stand? Because he was the man behind the camera, and maybe he was in front of the camera for tasings of Rick Allen at Westville Correctional Facility. That's kind of where we were going with that.
Yeah, we pulled up his affidavit and Joe was reading it back to us, and yeah, he talked about his little part in it, didn't he, with his camera holding activities. But so, we got an unspent bullet with questionable testing. I'm going to call it questionable testing because you failed to prove to me your test was accurate, and you failed to prove that it was a consistent test you performed on all of the guns you tested. You tested quite a bit. You were given quite a bit, including Mr. Weber's, including some right up out of the Deer Creek. It's close proximity to the victims. All that, matters. How did you clear, if you couldn't rule out they came from other weapons, how did you clear them as the weapon, but not this one as the weapon? That's failed to be, they haven't proven that to me either. What do you guys think? Y'all, have they got you on that point, or do you see the same bullshit I see?
Well, I'm telling you, the state doesn't want me in the jury box right now because I want them to quantify the uncertainty. Quantifiable uncertainty is huge in scientific experiments. Like you have to meet that 95% confidence level, and nobody even asked the state's witness what her confidence level was. To my knowledge, I wasn't there in person, so maybe somebody did. But was it? So you can tell me that this gun or that this unspent round matched a Sig Sauer that was like Rick Allen's, but like DNA. Was it 1 in 5 billion? Was it 1 in 5 million? Was it 1 in 5,000? Was it 1 in 500? Tell me what your uncertainty level and your confidence level is in this match between the unspent round and the gun. And we've heard that it could be 1 in 500. And we know there are probably, there's a good likelihood there are 500 Sig Sauer 40 calibers in the state of Indiana or in the Midwest within driving distance of the Monon High Bridge. So if it's 1 in 500, that's reasonable doubt for sure.
Oh yeah. Like that would be like the same way out here. Like it's about to be hunting season, so somebody committed a crime with a shotgun, and they rounded up all these good old boys. They're all going to have that gun, and so, and I'll get, this is a different type of shot. I'm just saying, in theory wise, there's a lot of weapons out there people do have that are a lot alike, especially in certain areas. People like to carry guns in more places than others for different reasons. And a lot of these reasons are just for that very personal reason that a lot of people carry a gun. It's not a big deal here, and I don't think it is in a lot of places. So, you failed to prove it to me. And I'm not just, I tried to give their evidence a fair shot, like for real. That's what you're supposed to do. I can't go in there and go automatically, oh, that's not going to match Rick Allen's, and I need to hear what's your theory on where's these marks on this bullet, and tell me where they are on that gun and make it match. They failed to do that, without a doubt, to me. So I'm just like going through what evidence they presented, and was it believable? 100%. If you're that juror reading the instructions Joe read, how do you weigh that piece of evidence? Because it's all going to be different. They're talking about it, the video, the audio, the unspent round, the timeline. Is it his car or not his car? Did anybody ever identify that car as the car?
Did anybody ever identify that bridge guy as Richard Allen on the stand in front of the jury? Never. Not a single one.
They didn't want their sketches in, so we all know the jury didn't get to see the famous 5-year sketches. Well, not one wasn't a whole 5 years. Came close with 3. So can bring your sketches in, but you could bring in the witnesses who you developed the sketches from by talking to. Let them describe what they saw again, and they did, and it wasn't Rick. And so, excuse me, no eyewitnesses could really, you know what else I've noticed during all these, and I've thought about it before, and it's just, I guess it leaves my thoughts pretty quickly because I'm so onto so many different thoughts. But out of all those witness descriptions of what they saw that day, how many of those witnesses described seeing Abby and Libby? Rick Allen never said he saw Abby and Libby when he went to go for a short walk on the bridge to look at the fish and look at his phone for the stock stuff. Not paying attention. They're so far down you couldn't tell who they were anyway because you're half blind like half of us. Okay. So it wasn't a thought about. Okay, I get it. But nobody, I think one person described what might have been Abby and Libby as they walked past, but who else out there describing all the randoms they seen walking around that day described to you that they saw Abby and Libby and placed them there at a specific time, other than the videos on the bridge?
There are just so many questions. And it's just so incredible to believe after all of this time, after all of this emotional investment and actual physical investment in this case by people who have had nothing to do with it, that it's going to be in the hands of a 12-person jury in the very near future.
As always, could you imagine if your life was in somebody's hands, like 12 people's hands like that? And none, a lot of times your defendants are guilty. Who knows? It's not, but whether I guess you are or not, that's like that feeling, they're not gonna believe me or they do believe me. It's like one of those. Can you imagine knowing that you are innocent, like, because that's the truth, but it's in their hands and you haven't been made to look good that's crazy. There's a lot of things that appeared to have been done to make him look a certain way. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's going back to putting him in prison where you have your Odinist guard. And we can say that we saw the affidavit where call yourself whatever label you want to give yourself today. You have someone of a different practice guarding this man that y'all say did a crime that was investigated for this. It's all weird from there. Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's not just weird, it's a gross violation of prisoner treatment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
100%. I honestly, at this point in my personal experience and journey throughout this whole trial, and I have been there as a quote unquote internet sleuth from day one. Like I did a height analysis of Bridge Guy on day one, where I showed the width of the railroad ties and the height of that guy. And there was some uncertainty there because he's kind of at a weird angle. But people are just like now coming out with that, like in the last couple of weeks, saying, oh, look what I did with this. No, I did that in 2017. I did that in February of 2017. I have been here since day one, and I don't know if Richard Allen is guilty or innocent. I don't believe he could have done this by himself. So if he participated in it, then he's guilty. And if he didn't, then he's not. But there are three things that the jury can come back with. He's either factually innocent, like they believe he didn't have any part of it. He's legally not guilty, which means he's not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, or he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And we have no control over that after all of this emotional investment that we have in this. That's where we're at.
Yeah, I think
we can theorize about all the theories about what Betsy Blair saw, what Sarah Carball saw, what that group of 4 girls saw, or 3 girls. Was it 3 girls or was it 4? And how different people said it was a group of 3. Richard Allen said it was a group of 3 when it was supposed to be a group of 4, and how that doesn't make sense, and the state's timeline doesn't make sense. And after being there on site, the state's timeline doesn't make sense. I'll tell you that now, like flat out. You can't like get startled by Brad Weber's white van on his private drive going home from his job at Subaru at 2:32 p.m. And then an hour, and then so you do something out of panic. You panic, stop your essay attempt, and redress one of the girls partially, and then you walk up the ravine an hour and a half later. That makes no sense. The state's timeline doesn't make sense. But that doesn't mean Richard Allen wasn't involved in some way. That just means the investigation was crappy and the state's case was crappy. And what should that result in? We all know what that should result in, but we all don't know what that's going to result in.
If Rick Allen was involved, now I'm to the point to where if Rick Allen was involved, then whoever's DNA y'all do have that y'all keep refusing to test, because maybe one day that person might be the other person you're looking for, that you're waiting on one day to get here to find, which don't make any sense to me either. I don't think it does to anybody who's paying attention to what y'all were saying, Mr. Lawman. No, because you've never, going back to holding you accountable now, them, the law enforcement, because if Rick Allen's the guy, and you could have proved it by proving whoever's DNA you got and going after them, then maybe could have got your Richard Allen as well, because you're banking on Richard Allen's going to confess to it and tell you who all was there with him, because he doesn't mention being with anybody else ever in these 60 plus confessions. It's all him, CVS guy, no Odinism here, just me freaking out, got startled by a white van. And you found that out how? From your doctor who's hanging out in Facebook groups where Brad Weber hangs out at with Gray Hughes. I mean, I could get like right now, I could just, it's almost reached a level where it's ridiculous, for people to consider anything other than what it is that could have been happening here. That this man appears to have been put somewhere on purpose to facilitate something they needed. And I just don't know if they ever thought it would get to a level where people would actually watch and give a damn. They're all going to go, oh, yay, finally they got the guy who did that to Abby and Libby. Thank God. And everybody's good and going to walk away and look at other things, And there may be a smaller amount watching this than needs to be, honestly. I think for scholars in the legal realm, they'll go on about it for a long time, but the general public will not. And especially in true crime, I'm going to be on to the next one. It is what it is, but it's just crazy that it gets to this point that we face a possibility that kind of shit could happen this day and age to somebody.
Yeah. And all it takes is for one jury member to make it a hung jury as opposed to a guilty or not guilty verdict. And he can be retried. He can continue to be kept in pretrial detention, and then he can be retried.
Yeah.
All it takes is 1 out of 12.
I mean, either suck really bad as investigators, that you let somebody go that long that is guilty of something, or you're either suck that bad as investigators. Not only are you doing that, but you're going to frame somebody in the meantime, and then put them through all this. Which one is it here? Which road are y'all really going to travel down? It's got to be one of the two. It's almost that way. There's no if, ands, or buts anymore. It's why, why'd y'all do this? And how it got this crazy this far in, even with the judge and the decisions that were all handed down all the way through the case, even down to, the crazy with the trial, the no cameras and the no audio, no getting on the street, no getting up here on the sidewalk at night anymore thing now, and all of that. And what it's taken for people to get into the courtroom. Joe's been there trying to get into the courtroom, and has seen firsthand what the chaos is like.
And it just got worse. I mean, they
Yeah.
literally reduced the number of public seats available by a third. They went from 24 to 16 overnight.
Hmm.
And that has nothing to do with the election and election counting. So
Yeah.
I doubt the line moving had anything to do with that too, but I don't know. But I mean, 16. How many millions of people across the world are watching this case?
Or trying to. I
And
think
how
they
many can't?
underestimate the numbers, but I don't know what they were afraid of by letting people who are interested in this type of stuff watch. It's not like the entire world was watching. We wish, but they're not. It is a certain type of individual, community, whatever, that will watch this stuff. People who are into true crime, people who are into the legal aspects, all kind of, who knows what draws you, but it's a certain, thing, but no one gets to see it. And that's a problem, because it's not supposed to be that way. People are like, oh, you're not entitled to a transcripts, letting more people into the building that need to be in there. I mean, come on, you don't get to take every right away. You know what I mean? And they try to take away a lot in this case.
It just seems like such an attempt by the establishment. And yes, I am anti-establishment. It seems like such an attempt by the establishment to keep the public excluded as much as possible.
Yes, but why? People wouldn't have those questions if they weren't out here blatantly doing it, causing questions. And it should be questioned when you see it happening.
Yes, agreed. 100% agreed.
Yeah, because it's not supposed to happen that way. There are laws in place to protect that very thing. There's our constitutional rights in place to protect from that very thing from happening, that we're seeing happen. That's why I was really happy to see what Andrea was doing, or attempting to do there, because it's like, when is enough enough? You know what I mean? Of course, what are we going to do? We don't know much other than that. It's like, go Andrea. But yeah, every little bit counts, hopefully. And, maybe it'll draw attention to a problem.
Yeah, we've got to do something. So when I was in Bob Mata's live chat last night, I was talking with another another true crimer. I don't remember his or her handle, but we were talking about prisoner abuse, and he pointed me to a couple of the articles that were written by the defense's expert, Gracian, and it's good stuff, and I can read it, but what am I going to do after I read it?
Yeah.
Am I gonna go be an advocate for prisoner rights? Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know what my path is, where my journey goes, but this case in particular has been very enlightening for me, that the fact in the state of Indiana, my home state where I was born and raised, we have a prisoner that was held in solitary confinement at the Westville Correctional Facility for 13 or 14 months, and for 4.5 or 5 months, after the first 4.5 months, he was confessing to crimes that he had never previously confessed to. When he was in his interrogations, he denied that he was guilty 20 to 25 times. So they arrested him, sent him to prison, shackled him, put him in solitary, and after 4.5 months of solitary confinement, he started confessing. And that's going on in my home state, and that is disturbing to me. And I honestly, I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah. It's overwhelming when you think about it, because you do want to make a change and have things matter. Because there's been times in Florida when things weren't always that great with some of our departments. Like the Florida Department of Law was one of them years ago. There was a lot of pushback finally on law enforcement in the state, and now it's the total opposite. FDLE is one of the top in the country. Our Florida sheriffs are pretty well known, some of them. Our Department of Children's and Families took a beaten, and rightfully so, because we had kids coming up missing that no one knew about that were under DCF's care. A little girl for 2 years was gone. No one knew it. No one reported it. Turns out DCF knew it all along. She was under their care, but it was never reported to anybody. And when the public found that out, that how can a child go missing for 2 years and nobody, not even the state in charge of this child, knows where this child is at? Where was the last foster home y'all had her in? How long was she there? That was a mistake. But it was actually good, because it caused a lot of problems for the department, and they had no choice but to implement change at that point. But it took people acting out, acting on it. Like Joe's saying, what do you do? Do you become involved? There's all kinds of levels of being involved, could look like. So there's different ways to get involved and to help, I guess I could say, and take a look at what does matter to you the most and figure out ways that you can help. Maybe we can come up with ways together to advise each other on and things like that. But it starts somewhere, and usually it's with some pushback when questions are finally brought out and being asked.
We have so many questions. And because of the way that Judge Gull and her orders have kept this hidden behind a veil, we're gonna have questions maybe forever in this case, regardless of what the jury verdict ends up being, regardless of what the defense and the prosecution's closing arguments do and say, and what the jury verdict is. We're gonna probably have questions forever on this case.
Oh yeah. And imagine if you're the jurors and you're watching the video of the in-cell and the out-of-cell motions of Rick Allen. We've heard the descriptions of what was on those videos. That's not just Rick Allen you're seeing. It is, technically, but it's not. How many other prisoners go through this? What do you going to take the time to say, well, what was their conviction? What were their charges? You're going to base it on that before you make a judgment call? Or are you going to look at it and say, hey, their basic rights are being violated, regardless of what that report is about to tell you? Do you see what I'm saying? You got to compartmentalize. You got to separate things. You can't bring your feelings with you, kind of thing. So are they looking at that and going, wow, this is what our prisons are doing to people? And are they fed up with it? Are they disgusted by what they saw as well? I got the impression that some of those jurors were very disgusted by what they saw in those videos. Not just because it was disgusting what was happening, but disgusted that it was happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I had to think about what I was saying there for a minute. Like, wait a minute, about to trip my own self up here.
Shall we shift our focus off of Delphi
Yeah.
for a little bit? You want to give us some updates on something else
Yeah.
going on?
So tomorrow, speaking of the Bryan Kohberger case, tomorrow he has a hearing in Ada County at 9 a.m. That is Idaho. I think that's 10 Central. Don't ask me what everybody else's time is. I don't know. Eastern, I do know that. I know what Eastern time is. Anyway, 9 a.m. in the morning, they're that mountain time, I guess it is. But it is, it's a hearing on the death penalty, which I don't know if it's they filed a bunch of new motions in the case, right? They're all there, and I've seen them because I check it all the time, and they're all death penalty motions, and I'm not going to go over them all right now because there's a lot, and I do want to go over them, but I think I'll do that tomorrow because I am going to hold a live tomorrow, probably hearing, because that's usually the way I do the Kohberger hearings. I let them go do their thing because I'm usually concentrating on what his attorneys and they're saying and what the prosecution's saying. So then we'll come and talk about it and get caught up. But it's to get the death penalty taken off the table, getting it thrown out, different motions that they filed for that. And I don't know if there's specific ones being heard tomorrow. Yeah, I was looking for a folder I had over here. So I was just going to touch on that and talk about that for a little bit. There's probably 6 motions filed over there. And I was looking, let me look at my thing real quick so I can pull that up. I'm going to show them. I have so many Indiana stuff now saved, you know what I mean, mixed in with my other stuff now. It feels like that I didn't have before. It's like, where did everything go? I don't want to get it out of Discord. Yeah, let me do that. Hang on, let me grab something. But I don't know how many of you out there were following the Idaho case. Oh, Andrea was going to talk about other cases, including Flora. Well, maybe getting some new eyes or fresh eyes, I should say, on Flora would help. Because Lord knows we need some fresh eyes on that case, right? Because it's a little much considering the coincidental part of it being attached to the Delphi case. Uh-oh. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, I hear you fine. You're doing good.
Okay. It took me... What the hell's it done here? Okay, let me pull this up. I was going to read something real quick if I can get it up here in time. Gosh, there's been a lot of filings in that Idaho. I've read so many documents in the Idaho 4 case, and sometimes you forget some of the ones you have read. And you're like, oh yeah, damn. Know that they got the trial date set and everything, and they had a lot of... What they did was they set aside... This is right before they went to Ada County. They decided to set aside like a Thursday of every week was set aside for pretrial hearings. I think they've tried to continue that once they decided to go over to go ahead and make the switch to Ada County, because they did go ahead and change the venue They got the change of venue, but they were immediate with that. No waiting till trial, then we switch. We switch now, which was a little surprising to everybody that they did that. They transferred Kohberger over to the Ada County Jail from Latah County right after that. Okay, so it looks like, let me go count how many exactly. A lot of expert witnesses are coming in from the defense side. They've been afforded the opportunity to have a pretty decent budget and enough to afford some pretty good experts in their field. So they have had a motion to strike future dangerous aggravators in the case. Speedy ground on grounds that Speedy doesn't permit effective assistance. Motion to strike grounds the Speedy doesn't permit. So if you want to, if you okay, hang on, Ann. If you ask for a speedy trial that doesn't permit you a time to have effective assistance. So if you're granted a speedy trial, you're going to, oh, no. Good luck with that particular one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Looks like there's about 10 motions on the death penalty. Basically, she wants it off there altogether for many different factors and reasons. Any reason you can think of, and that's part of the job, right? Part of the what she needs to do. So I don't know how long that hearing will go. And they don't have plans to discuss anything else that is listed on the website. I don't know if you guys, let me see if I can get me back up there. I got lost on my screen. Like I can't even see my StreamYard anymore. That's crazy.
You could have figured out.
It's so funny that I did that. But yeah, so that's the thing with where we're at with the Kohberger. We haven't had a hearing. I think we had one. No, we got this is the new judge. So how will things go with this judge? We don't know. No one's really familiar with him or the way he will rule. Hang on. If this, let me see if I can get back in here. Hold on. Okay. All right. I gotta go. Hold on.
Oh my gosh, you just almost left me all by myself in your chat. That was so scary. I survived.
Okay. Is it fine now, I think?
Yeah,
All right.
I think so.
Okay. So yeah, that's where they're at with that one. Nothing has happened in a while since he got moved. They did put a little motion in to see if he could still continue to wear his street clothes to his hearings. And the judge did allow it for the last hearing, like the first one he had, but we haven't heard that change. So I'm assuming he still gets to wear his suits for tomorrow's hearing. Hang on. I got some kind of weird notification.
I tell you, StreamYard has been acting really funky today.
Yeah, it's like from StreamYard on top of that. It's like weird. I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Click here to recon. I don't know if I don't know. I don't even know what that means. I'm not doing anything. If it all goes to shit, it's because I didn't do something right. But we'll see. Okay. So there's really, other than that, there's nothing really to talk about there unless there's something there y'all want to talk about. There's not a whole lot. I mean, the death penalty is such a personal thing, as far as your belief systems go. So part of her job as his defense attorney is to, and Ann Taylor's known to fight the death penalty. That's what she does. She's a death penalty lawyer. So this is like this is her gig. You know what I mean? These motions are standard for her. She wouldn't be effective counsel if she wasn't filing these motions and trying to get these hearings. But will they matter? Will they have the nerve to walk in here in front of this new judge and say as far as the law? I don't know. That's where I'm at with Anne. I like to see where she's going with her legal argument. So
Yeah, and when you're a defense attorney,
yeah.
so I know there's a lot of shade thrown at Anne, and I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but when you are a defense attorney, sometimes you have scumbags and really evil people as your clients. I mean,
oh yeah,
that's a fact of life.
Well, right now, Ann Taylor has Skylar Mead, and she has Bryan Kohberger. Everyone who didn't know much about Idaho law and the way things were done, and we were all new to it, but I did follow the Vallow and Daybell case prior to the Kohberger case, and they were done right there in Ada County as well. So I'm not like new to the their game there. I kind of know about it, and that's the bigger trial. But that was part of the things, being looked at there. Hold on one second. Sorry. Joe, you take this. I'll be right back. I got someone at the door. I think it's a delivery. I'll be right back.
Yeah. No, I hope no, I don't want pizza. I had pizza last night. So if you're ever in Indiana and you want good pizza, you need to go to a Pizza King or the Arnie's in Lafayette. And that is the best pizza in Indiana. I think some other areas call it like pub style pizza. So what they do is they spread the toppings out all the way around to the edge of the crust. So basically there is no crust except for directly underneath the pizza. So that's where I'm going with this, because she had a delivery at her door, and delivery makes me think of pizza for some reason. And when you combine pizza with Indiana, you have to go to Pizza King. And the Battleground Pizza King is the best. It's like 15 minutes south of Delphi if you go the back road. So you want to go down Old State Road 25 from Delphi and then cross over on State Road 225 and get yourself a pizza from the Battleground Pizza King. And if you're not a huge pizza fan, the Strombolis are the best Strombolis in North Central Indiana at the Battleground Pizza King. Like my brother and I, he lives out of state now, but he grew up in the area with me. And we have a consensus that the Battleground Pizza King is the best. So, all right, she had a delivery. She got pizza. I'm not getting pizza. So we got to talk about something else. So we can talk about Kohberger a little bit, and a kind of a random stray thought that I had was the fact that Bryan and his dad, when they were driving back from Washington State University in late November, I think, or early December, it was early December, I think, or mid-December of that year, they got stopped by cops in Indiana on the way through. So that would have been I-70 west of Indianapolis or I-74. I'm going to have to pull up a map so I can see. But they were stopped by, I think, Hendricks County sheriff's officers who patrol the state highways, obviously, a lot. And that interaction and that video is really crazy, because he seems like arrogantly offended that why is this county sheriff's officer stopping him on a traffic stop when he was violating a traffic law, according to the county sheriff's deputy. But it was just interesting trial. It's not going to be trial video, I don't think. Like, if you're either the defense or the prosecution, why would you show this? But it was all fodder for us in the true crime community to be like, okay, we saw him stopped in Indiana for basically a minor traffic violation. How does that play into his quote guilt or innocence? You know, it's mind-boggling, because we all sit here in our community and try and determine, is this a guilty man or an innocent man? We don't know. Salty, do you know?
About that, there was okay. So I'm sorry. So what you're right, and what I was saying about that, like with Ann Taylor, she's a good attorney, and she knows what she's doing, and that's why she's a death penalty attorney. But people didn't like when Bryan Kohberger appeared in court and he stood silent. That was seen as something that it wasn't. And Lori Vallow also stood silent prior to Bryan Kohberger. Well, Ann Taylor's current client, Skylar Meade of Idaho, recently stood silent with his attorney standing beside him, Ann Taylor. If you look at Skylar Meade's past, you can go to the Idaho website where you pull up all of Kohberger's dockets. You can also pull up, his is right there as well. And he is and what he is accused of doing, and you're like, wow, okay, you know, it appears he's a very guilty man. So, but he stood silent, the same as Bryan Kohberger. So does it really mean anything, or is it standard law lingo in Idaho? Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
so you have to gauge. It's like, like you're saying, if are they guilty or are they not? And sometimes you know, and sometimes you don't know. It's
well, the jury, does the jury know if they quote unquote stand silent or quote unquote plead not guilty?
Yeah, well, what happens is they stand like as for arraignment, we would call that arraignment in Florida, or where you go and you make, like, you're either guilty, not guilty, whatever, if you're how you're going to plea basically. And they have the option there to what they call stand silent, meaning you have no other. And so at that point, the judge enters a not guilty plea for you on your behalf.
So what does the jury hear? Does the jury hear?
I don't know if
this
they actually
defendant has stood silent, or does the jury hear this defendant has pled not guilty? What does the jury
That's
hear?
a good. I can't remember, so I have to go back and review how that took place in Lori Daybell's or Vallow's case.
Okay, since we just got done talking about an Indiana case, can we watch the traffic stop of Bryan Kohberger? It's only a minute long. In Indiana. Holy crap. Hold on. I think I may have a delivery here too.
Uh-oh.
I'll play this. Hold
Bryan
on.
Kohberger stop in Indiana?
Yes, let me play this for
yeah.
just a minute, and then I'll go see what the dogs are all upset about.
Oh yeah, I've seen this footage a lot, but I'm always down to watch it again.
I don't know if this is the first one or the second one, but it's like so interesting to me.
Do we think these were planned stops?
I think that's a good question.
They say they are. They say they aren't.
Yeah.
There is some news reports out there that they did follow in the little plane.
If Doug Carter was in front of it, then I don't think they were planned. I think they were just accidental. Just saying. All right. Did you get that to share?
Oh, yeah, let me get that. Add it. There we go.
There we go. All right.
So this will be with his dad traveling back to Pennsylvania after the murders over there. It was a planned trip, according to law enforcement and to the defense. So his dad flew out there and met him, and I think he flew into Seattle. Anyway, he met him out there, and they drove the white Elantra from there, Washington State, all the way back to Pennsylvania. And this is traveling through Indiana, correct, Joe? When they were pulled over by a state trooper.
Yes, and this is just east of Indianapolis. And one of the two stops, Kohberger says, yes, we're going to go get Indian food or something like that, which is crazy because there are very few places you can get
Thai
Indian food.
food, I think he said.
Yes, Thai food. Yes. Yeah. You got it.
Hello, Niles.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not traveling across country. I'm just going for some Thai food.
Right. And you notice how police officers always put their fingerprints on the rear of the vehicle when they come up to it. That's a police officer thing. Is it my video or is this really like Skippy?
Oh, is it me?
No, look how dirty that car is, though.
Well, it's long distance traveling. Mm-hmm.
He's been out in the country. He's been on a dirt road in that car.
Well, he was apparently in November out sightseeing and stuff. That's what he did. But on this particular journey, he was traveling cross country.
Somebody said something about his eyes. Oh my gosh.
Oh, well, okay. There's been a lot of things said about this video. His eyes, his hands, his dad's reaction. His dad brings up the Kopaka incident that just occurred back over in Washington. If y'all have any questions, drop them in the comments section. I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. My question is, was it a planned stop? There were two back-to-back Indiana stops, correct? They were both in Indiana.
Yes, correct. And I think maybe even in the same county.
They were been not 15 minutes apart. They weren't that long.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And some, was it to put eyes on our suspect, to make contact with them, to make that physical contact. And then the officer reports back to command that, yes, that's him. All systems go. Keep following.
Niles, if you're talking about the Bryan Kohberger video and it's snowing, it's not surprising. That was December in Indiana.
Well, it was snowing on the trip. There's been some deep dives done into this trip. Even the route taken, because you could have went. There's a whole Montana aspect to this, but we went a long way. We went a different way. Oh Lordy, it's a whole show, but there's been a lot of thought put into this drive, this video, the amount of filth on the car, the elements on the car. How thoroughly that car was cleaned before it ever left Washington State, how thoroughly cleaned it got once it got to Pennsylvania. And we also know that they took this car apart in Pennsylvania. They took the gas pedals, they took the doors off, they took it apart literally and brought it into evidence.
And what did they find?
We don't know yet. As far as we know, in discovery and from what the defense has said, because there's a big gag order in this case. So what we do know is no connection to the victims and no evidence in the car or the apartment.
What about his pillow? What about his pillow?
Nothing's come back on the pillow yet from the presumptive test There was a presumptive blood test done in the apartment on a spot on the pillow and I believe on the sheet. Presumptive for blood, out for further testing. We have no clue. There was a possible animal hair. Was it Murphy's? We don't know. It's out. We don't. There's a gag order, and the only thing that has come out is what the defense has come out and slipped out during their filings, and they're not so free as what we've had in Delphi files, like Frank motion type stuff. But they have come out and said things. And Ann Taylor has said things in court. She's great about saying things in court, getting it on the record, and for me to hear it. That's why I pay a really close attention during these hearings. So what we do have heard is nothing right now. We don't know anything about the data stuff that's been recovered and looked into, about his phone movements that night, how this has got nothing, dude. This is like the only leak that's occurred in Idaho 4 is Linda Lane footage. And that's it. And some people that like to talk a lot. Yeah, other than that, we don't know much, as far as what they do and don't have. We got his we don't have. We have his alibi statement via his attorney that says he was out driving around. But we're not going to tell you exactly where. We're going to wait and let your data from your investigation tell us where. And then you got your sheath DNA. How that got in there. Touch DNA, transfer. We kind of got a crash course in that a little bit here in Delphi, which if people in Idaho have looked into all the things DNA because of the DNA on the sheath. So.
Yeah, it's crazy how many similarities there are actually between the cases. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, Ann Taylor came in hot. I mean, she came in hot right off the bat. I want training records for the county sheriff's deputies that were in that home the minute this happened, investigating the scene. Everybody that was there, I need training records. How good were y'all, right? How thorough were you? Did you contaminate things while you were in there? Things you might go, oh, well, she's just nitpicking. Was she? Look at Delphi. How many things did they overlook or decide wasn't interesting enough to test? Are we going to hold that for further testing? Did we have the same shoddy investigation in Idaho? So let me get you training records. Somebody had a Brady Giglio violation. We know that. And got those records and subpoenaed. And Taylor wrote a TUI report because that is what you are required to write when you want something the FBI has. And Ann wanted everything down to your damn notes. Not just your report. I want your notes that led to your report. That's how she works. And she had to get the TUI report filed. It took her a long time to get all that done. She did it. Then she got her subpoena for the FBI information, and Judge signed it the day she brought it to him. So they can talk their madness over here in Delphi, but we got rid of the FBI and all this. There's that TUI report. It can be done. Shit, Ann Taylor done. Hold my beer, Ann Taylor says. Like, I got respect for Ann Taylor. Like, I'm waiting on her to bring me a good defense that I can show me something that I haven't seen yet in this case, if that makes sense. Because I do think they got some decent probable cause against Bryan Kohberger, but there's nothing convincing me he did anything yet. I'm not supposed to see that until we get to trial, really. So gag order or not, I guess, is the question. Do they work? Do they not? I don't know. What do you think about a gag order?
It's so conflicting. It's a conflicting decision because the Sixth Amendment right to a fair trial, to a public trial, a fair and public trial. But if you release too much information too soon, you can definitely compromise the investigation and the results of the witness testimony.
Mm-hmm.
But we saw in Richard Allen's trial in Delphi, where you have one of the strictest gag orders that's been in effect in any of the prominent trials, where multiple Freedom of Information Act requests have been put in and have been denied because of Judge Gall's gag order. But you still have witnesses sitting in the courtroom watching the testimony of other witnesses and then getting recalled to testify about common knowledge. So is
And
a
see,
gag
that's
order?
not allowed in Idaho. And I know only reason I know that is because I know that they're different people, but so Kay and Larry Woodcock were grandparents to JJ Vallow, and they were going to testify and they wanted to be in the courtroom, right, for the whole trial, all of it. But they wouldn't have been allowed to because they were going to be called as a witness. So the judge worked it out where they could go ahead and call those two immediately and get it over with, and then allow them to sit in the courtroom the rest of the time. But that was the opposite in Indiana, right? Where they were allowed, was it Holman, to
Yeah, there were
stay
two.
in?
There were
Okay.
two. There were two. There were two law enforcement officers that were allowed to stay in the courtroom during the entire testimony. Plus, there were also witnesses that had testified earlier that were allowed to remain in the courtroom after their initial testimony that were later recalled by the defense to testify.
Mhm. Well, I guess they are allowed to sit there and be influenced. I mean, because that to me sounds
Absolutely,
like that's
100%,
happening, right?
100%. Yes.
Yeah, that shouldn't be allowed.
Like
Uh,
Cecil is a prime example. Cecil was allowed
yeah,
to be in the courtroom for the defense's cell phone expert
and Google
witness.
what she was saying,
Yes,
or Googling a reason, or would it be an explanation for what she was saying?
right. For a 3.5 millimeter audio port
Mm-hmm.
to be to have an event registered on
Well,
the permanent records. Yeah.
Google told me she's a much more believable expert than he is.
Well, we'll see what the jury says. It sounds to me like she is, but the jury is the only one that matters right now.
Well, if they think like us, like the majority, they're no different than we are. That's the thing about the beauty about juries, right?
Yes, a jury of your peers,
And
like
they exactly,
regular, ordinary, everyday people.
and I know they put a lot of thought into choosing those jurors, and we've seen this jury is pretty well educated. They have a different walks of life, different educational backgrounds as far as what they know, and they're asking really good questions. So what, how we gauge them, I get, I don't know how long this is going to even take them. Like, I just don't know. I'm so conflicted to even, I'm scared to even have a thought about it at this point.
We all are. We all have
Yeah,
anxiety. It's
yeah.
it's
I
out of
guess
our
you're right.
control.
We do, right? We do have anxiety about it, regardless. Because if you feel like they haven't proven to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Rick Allen's guilty, and they come back with a guilty verdict, it's going to be a really bad feeling. And if they come back with not guilty, and you feel that that's correct, you're going to feel good. But the people, not just like, then you're going to be shamed for feeling good. System shit. No, it's not. I'm going to feel bad because not only did his life get ruined because of the thoughts y'all put out there, or tried to put out there, and all the things, but those two little girls, now who the hell is going to pay for what happened to them that day?
Yeah,
And where do we go with that?
because there are two types of what I have discovered in my personal journey throughout this experience with seeking justice for Abby and Libby and being so close to Delphi and being personally, emotionally involved since day one. is there are two types of true crime people. There are the ones that really are interested in seeing justice done for the victims, justice for Abby and Libby, justice for their families. And if there is a wrongfully accused defendant, seeing justice done for that defendant.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are people that are in it for the clicks and the likes and the being monetized on YouTube. And it's just been an incredible journey that I have absolutely no control over the ending of at all. We don't know if he's going to be found guilty or not guilty. We don't know if the jury is going to be convinced that he's not guilty. Most of us who have been objective throughout this in the last 2 weeks have been very strongly convinced that the state's case is shit, that they did a horrible job of investigating it, and that the amount of evidence does not amount to proof beyond a reasonable doubt. But you never know when you put it in the hands of a jury, and it's all beyond our control.
I know. And what they think, what they believe, what aspects of this evidence held weight with them and what didn't. I feel like, though, the read that I took on them from what we've seen is that I think they're leaning toward what we all lean to. There's reasonable doubt. Can we get there 100%? Some of us absolutely can, and some of us are like, it's just, it's hard for me to think they're going to come back like with a unanimous guilty. I would be shocked if that were the case. I really would be.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think there's any way that he gets found guilty 100% of the time, 100% by all 12 jurors. But so that leaves me in the quandary between, is it going to be a hung jury or is it going to be a not guilty jury? Because if it's a hung jury, he can be retried and he can be held in pretrial confinement until he is retried.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they can get away with that anymore in this case. Because the minute if that were to happen and you continue to keep my client in the conditions you've been trying to keep him in for all this time, and now everybody's done seen, no, we're about to have a showdown. Keep him in Cass County. They literally over to Wabash from Westville. Cass County said they could accommodate him. They didn't want to, but they would, because they knew it was the right thing to do, considering the other little counties, oh, we can't do it. We're just so hick town, we can't do shit. Okay, fine. We'll go stick him over there with the Odinist guards. Oh, that makes more sense, doesn't it? Yeah, okay. Not when you got Cass County saying, fine, we'll take him. Not like, yeah, we welcome him. No, it was fine, we'll take him. They were like, no, y'all can't even do that. We're going to send him to Wabash prison instead, further away from family and further away from his attorneys, putting a further burden on him to see his attorneys. It's bullshit. It's been
it's so crazy
for a minute.
Right, but it's so crazy because we have formed very definitive opinions of him at this point in time, whether he's guilty or not guilty, or we're undetermined. And we also have of somebody like Stephan Stearns. And I have my opinion of that, and I guarantee you 99.9% of people out there do too. Like, we don't need to see anything more. We're just waiting on another shoe to drop. Like, was he sharing CP stuff with other people? And are they trying to bring in like a ring of that CP stuff? So what's the update on that? Can you give us an update on where Stephan Stearns' case is?
Stephan Stearns. So there's just been more document drops come out lately with him. I think he's set for trial later. I think it might be 2025 now, or either the end of 2025. Yeah. I think he goes to trial. But I don't know if it's going to get there. I honestly don't know if he'll get there or not. Let me look for something here. What would I do with it? And we still don't know anything about Jennifer Soto as far as her whereabouts, and no charges filed yet with her. We've heard through a media report that there would confirm either way what they will or what they won't do with her. We've seen a lot of interviews come down where she's being interviewed, and it kind of put a little bit, not there's a context behind any of the madness that is those two, but some of the things we were reading in the documents, you know what I mean, that were like, where'd that come from? Where that statement's crazy. You saw where it came from once you could see some of the videos and hear it, which didn't really help anything. It just made it even crazier as far as what was actually going on here with this little girl, and who knew what as far as her mother goes. So yeah, still no, here it is, what I was looking for. Still no update on whether or not they're going to do anything with Jennifer. And I think that's, a lot of people can debate on her and what that could or couldn't mean. But there was just some interesting things that came down in the documents, in the new ones. And I usually get the documents from Patreon. I'll get them through Plunder. This particular set, Butterfly picked up for us. So thank you, Butterfly. Shout out. She actually got these, a week and a half ago. We got these, and yeah, we kind of have went over them privately, like, did you see this one, did you see that one, kind of thing. We really haven't had a chance to look at them hard. So there was just a couple that were crazy to me that stood out, and one was, let me find it, page, I think it was, let me get to the right page, it's going to take a minute. There was stuff in here about putting the trackers on the vehicles and what date that occurred, which that they didn't lead to the arrest or anything, but they did it pretty damn quickly when they suspected Stephan of lying to them. I think right off the immediate interview with him, they red flagged him, and decided to look at those two a little harder. And they got warrants, and they put one on all of their cars. Actually, I think they even went out and put one on his car. One is a Nissan and one is a Honda, but it's a Civic, so it's a Honda Civic. It was like a little taupe colored sedan, and we heard he wasn't driving his car because it was apparently needed work done to it. That's why he was driving Dad's Lincoln MKZ, and they knew that. And then they had Jen's cars. They put trackers on those cars almost immediately, and I guess they were able to follow them wherever they went at that point. And in this particular document drop, there's like 501 pages, and there's some, I want to go through these with Butterfly like we normally do our document drops with him. There's a bunch of pages in here where they're going to talk about that car, and then we're going to see that car. And I do want to look at that because it shows you the difference between like car footage. Let me see if I can get this to present just to give you an idea. This is just pictures that they have. And some of them, yeah, I think that's going to be as big as it'll go. But these are just images taken from various the red light cameras and the license plate readers. We have those in Florida. Now, it was a big deal in the Idaho case. Rear plates, front plates. Florida is only required that you have a rear plate. We don't require front and rear. So back license plates, all you need in Florida. So a lot of license plate readers captured him. We have cameras all around our red lights and things like that. But it just shows you the different locations. And notice in this one here, I don't know if you guys can see it that well. The way I look at it, you guys, is smaller than what you're seeing. But notice that rear tire, there's that little donut from where he had the blowout when he had to change his tire after he and I think so where the tire went flat is where he left Maddie, and I think that's why that spot was chosen, in my opinion. Tire blew out and out of necessity. But see, that's the kind of, and then if you look at the nighttime, it's grainy. Look at that. Could that have been a white Elantra? I'm just saying. No, it's supposed to be Jen's white Nissan. But I can also look at that top image, actually all of those, and I could take a screenshot right now and compare that to the grainy car we saw in the Idaho 4 stuff, and they'd almost be the same car. Rabbit hole. Rabbit hole, who wants to go with me? Anyway, let me get back to looking for this document that I'm looking for. And there's a lot of redacted pages as well, and those are going to be redacted images that we don't need to see anyway. I'm assuming they're images that were on the phone or that could have been crime scene images that would have been redacted.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel about this case very similarly that I do to Abby and Libby, where I don't want to see crime scene photos.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't seen them, and I don't want to. And I wasn't in court when they showed them, and we heard there were audible gasps from the gallery and from the jury.
Yeah.
And they saw some of them, and I'm not down for that. I don't need that in my head.
No, I don't think that you need to see all crime scenes to get a good idea of what happened. Do you know what I mean? And it's like in Florida now with our law that went into effect, the same law that's going to let Stearns fry from the death penalty for his crime also protects Maddie and that you can't get her autopsy report. The cause of death will come out in court. It's already come out in court documents. But to see the actual report from the pathologist and you know what I mean, everything involved, you're not going to see that. And that's to protect Maddie because of her age and what happened. And I think it's because she's under 13 at the time, or just turned 13 right when it happened. But also, so you can't see the autopsy stuff. And under the new law, because of what happened to her, is considered happening under domestic situation, meaning a person in charge of her care, like a parent, step parent, a guardian, that in that nature, which kind of amplifies what you did being worse. Now, if you can call it that, that warranted the death penalty in the state of Florida now. So not only was he was there, part of her life, and doing this to her, but he portrayed himself as being her protector, you know, to take care. He even says that I was her go-to person and all this bullshit. Well, welcome to Florida, Mr. Stearns. So let me get to this one because it's an interesting page, and I wanted to get what you're. I only saw one other person talk about it recently, and that doesn't mean people aren't paying attention as far as creators. I think we're all just been busy with a little bit of with the Delphi stuff and everything. Maddie talks about that certain coin situation, and a lot of people talk about how that could have been part of their game that I don't know what you call that little game they would play where they take care of little pets and stuff like that. Butterfly may know the name of that game better than I do, but it was some sort of coin about being a new parent, something. I don't have the whole quote right here in front of me, but it was about a text that Maddie sent over to Stephan Stearns that came out in the documents. And it was a text about, can we get this please? And it was that image of this coin. It was a link to an Amazon order or something asking, can we get this? And there was speculation as to why she would want that particular coin, referencing to parenthood, is it a boy or a girl kind of thing. Was it for obvious reasons, being pregnant, or was it innocent because of this damn game they played? That, who knows? Here's the page I was wanting to share. Okay, finally. There's so damn many in this file. Okay. And I'm going to have to blow it up so I can see it here. I don't know if you read it because I'm blind. All right, this is an evidence checkout list. And so this is some of the stuff they took from the apartment or the townhouse, condo, whatever you want to call it, where Jennifer Soto lived, where he stayed, had been living up until November. This was now February. He had moved out for a couple of months, but he had visited often in those few months. So he's back. So now they took a lift card for fingerprints and a second one, and then a CD and a DVD, a fingerprint, a major case kit, major case prints from Stephan Stearns. Then they have a package with white powdery substance, a latent card from the Mitsubishi, a latent card from a bottle, and another one. This one says cannabis, 23.2 grams. Now, just pot. Okay, Jennifer even said she gets her medical marijuana, but as far as I knew, she was just vaping. And you got this is like flour. So, did somebody have their little prescription? They also took, this was the part that was like, what? They got meth. So what was it? 0.8 grams of, or I don't know how you do meth. So is that GMs? Looks like it. 0.6 GM, whatever that means. A plastic bag with suspected cocaine, more cannabis, and crushed blue pill. What bothers me about all of these is the crushed blue pill. What the hell kind of pill is this? The weed don't bother me. Held in that home, and we know what those drugs do. Who was taking those drugs, and who are they being used on? Did they come out of room 4? It doesn't even say that on the evidence return that I can see, as far as even the address listed. You know what I mean? I'm assuming that came out of Stephan's stuff. So we got a date of 3/20/24 at 9:23 a.m. is the date on this. And yeah. It was said from information in another case was released with these documents. I haven't had a chance to verify. What are we talking about? Let's see. Another case was released with these documents. What do you mean, Butterfly? Like another case is brought up within these documents? We need to get off of here and do our thing, then come back live and talk about that. Oh, Joe, man, the Leighton, good Lord, like in the Idaho case, the latent footprint in the hallway, they found it once they put the light out there because there was no other footprints apparently. Hell, latent. We're going to see, that's the kind of shit I look up and read about all the time. Like somebody asked that question, I'm like, I got to already go and know. Yeah, fingerprint, palm print. And what is a latent lift card? So what is that going to be? Is that just going to be them putting it down and lifting for a thumbprint, fingerprint, your latent print? I love looking up evidence. Oh, I watch evidence videos all the time too. Give me a good tire footage on how they get to there with some tire stuff. I want to know. But yeah, these drugs were a red flag to me because we already had indications that he was drugging Maddie. In the documents we read, that the videos that Stephan took of him harming Maddie, it appeared she was asleep in some of those videos. We also know that she was already deceased in the car as he was driving around with her in the car. So were you drugging this poor child and how long? Because that's a whole other charge that needs to be added at this point. I don't care, throw as many as you can. I don't care if he's going life, DP, it doesn't matter. Give him 1,000 charges if you give him. Right, Joe? I love forensic files though, man. That was like my, when you're already intrigued by true crime and things like that, and that's what you're prone to watch on TV, and then lo and behold, something like that came out. God, I remember when that show came out. And then when you realized years later you done seen every dang one of them, then they have the Forensic Files 2 comes out. It's crazy what I've learned just from watching that show.
Oh, absolutely. I learned a lot, but Forensic Files 2 definitely does not compare to Forensic Files 1.
No, it doesn't, does it? Like, not at all.
Yeah, I'll watch reruns of Forensic Files 1 over and
Here
over
and
and
do
over
like
again.
right? We need to do a show one night of just like forensic stuff. Like, we'll check out, because I like to do that. I mean, that's the stuff that matters in the end, like your evidence. You want to know how gun or tool markings are done. Let's go watch some dang videos and see if they make sense. Let's go look at this and that. I watched one Forensic Files, was really cool though, because it was years and years ago, and what the lady did was literally she did it back in the 70s. So they were showing tire impressions, and that's one of like my favorite pieces of evidence for some weird reason. So her little girl was hit by a vehicle in the parking lot of where she worked. A small parking lot. It was like middle of the day. She was there working late or working on a Saturday or something. Her little girl was out there playing in the parking lot. This is the 70s. She's a single mom. It's the 70s. Kids out there playing. Anyways, she gets backed over and the person leaves. But it hurts the little girl, and she has many difficulties ahead and surgeries and different things. She's way better now, and she does okay, but she still has problems. But like a long time went by and they couldn't figure out who did it, where the person went, all these different things. She had gotten like some of the evidence from the scene, and for somehow, I forget how it all went down before I get it wrong, but she got led back to this particular van that she knew of, and she knew that tire needed to match that impression from the scene. So she sneaks up to the property where the van is with her damn pencil and paper, puts the paper up against that tire and sketches it right with her pencil to get the impression.
I remember that episode.
It
I
was a
remember
perfect,
that.
right? Wasn't it?
She
It
was
was
a
a
hero.
match.
She was a freaking
Yes.
hero.
Yes, the way she did it and the way she discovered back to that van and the way the chance she took by sneaking up there and getting this damn impression with a pencil, and it was a match. And they ended up proving that was the van and the guy that ran over her little girl.
Yep.
But
I remember that.
remember that? Stuff like that's amazing, and you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
what all they
Actually, that led me out to the site on the 31st, like for real. Like that was me. I want boots on the ground. I'm sitting here looking from the south end of the Monon High Bridge. I'm crossing the creek. I'm looking at the floodplain area where the girls were found. I'm looking at Brad Weber's trail cam that's on his tree by the private drive. I mean, all of that stuff like that resonates with me. And it's just so frustrating for that to be out of my control right now.
I know. Yeah, because you want to make it different or better or change. There's not, it's hard when you have to accept that you can't do anything when you want to.
I want to go into the jury room and I'll be like, watch my videos, watch
And knowing
this.
there's nothing you can do.
I want the jurors to be there, but obviously
Mhm.
it's it would be so difficult. It would be like very difficult for them to get out there. They would probably have to take the same route that I did, and they would have to go out the cemetery, go down the
All
Mears.
they got to do, honestly, to get to the location where the girls were found might be the chore. But to get to the south end of the bridge, down that hill, excuse me, just drive them down that private drive and
Yeah,
park or, and say, look, up that hill. That's the hill they had to come down. And this is where they had to cross to get to the creek to get over there where they were at. Okay. This is going to have to be good enough. Could have at least done that.
yeah.
Got them a better perspective of what the terrain might have been like a little bit. Everybody's like, oh, it's going to be so hard to get the jury down there. Public, and I guess the judge agreed, but I'm thinking the whole time, why? We got a damn driveway that leads you right there to down the hill. Why can't we just at least go that far? Right? Shit.
Yeah.
There we go again, questioning our intelligence, but okay. Whatever. Like, that's not hard. Anyway, so guys, I'm sorry. I'm starting to cough. I slept a lot yesterday. I feel like I've been trying to fight off this weird ickiness. You didn't feel good either yesterday, did you, Joe?
Nope. I had a very similar ickiness for sure.
Yeah. It's like stupid change of weather here in Florida. I don't know. It can't make up its mind if it wants to be warm and icky feeling because we might have a hurricane out in the Gulf. Oh, wait, we might not. It's going to be cool now and misty. It's like, make up your mind. I just want warm, like, all year round.
All right. Well, maybe you can take a break now. Maybe we can take a break and see if we can maybe get True Grit Crime to come on later.
Yeah, I wonder if. And then she did. Let me see if I got. Oh no. Sorry, my dad can't hear us anymore. Like, he's always been hard of hearing, and he just has a surgery recently on his ear, and it's not worked out yet because he still can't hear us. But just we taught him how to text. My brother did. And yeah, I just saw I got a text from him. Sorry, that kind of weirded me out 'cause I'm not used to getting those. Shit, that kind of sidetracked me because there was something I was fixing to tell you about, Joe, that I just saw come down. It was something about what you just said. Damn it.
About True Grit Crime?
Oh, yeah. So she got on the list, I think, right, to get back up there in the morning. So I did reach out to her earlier. I told her to give me a DM over on Twitter so I could link her a link if she wants to come up and do a live with us. To join us to have a conversation. So we'll see if she's able to get back to us about that. If not, I'm not thinking she's going to be back up there later. So
She
you're
looked
not
into
allowed to camp anymore, or what's the
No,
deal?
no, you're not. You're not allowed to stand in line before 7 a.m. And apparently, somebody has created a list. So there's a written list of the first 24 people to get into court, which used to be, no, it's 16 people, which used to be 24. And True Grit said that her name got scratched off the list. So I don't know. It's all. I'm not. I haven't sworn yet. I have not said a swear word yet, so I'm not going to now. Not at this point, but it's all crazy stupidness. That's what I'll say. And we know what the F word for that is, crazy stupidness.
I will probably always break the cursing stuff. Like, I don't even know when it happens. Like apparently the state called 3 rebuttal witnesses. All evidence has been presented. This is according to Kyla Russell on Twitter like 4 minutes ago. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. for closing arguments. I wish we could see at least the closing arguments. You know? At least, if nothing else.
Judge Gold has banned us from this being a public trial, and it's a damn shame. That's it.
She's been known to let us have transcripts after hearings.
If we pay for them, if
they're
literally,
paid for initially, right? You got to
yes.
be paid for. You got to pay for them because we know nothing's for free. But it's like you shouldn't have to in this case almost, because like you didn't let us have a camera or even an audio. Now you want us to pay to hear?
Okay, so here's the deal, and I think we should all
I
band
don't know.
together. I think we should all band together in this effort. Once the case is decided, once the jury comes back with their verdict, the gag order should not apply, and we should all file 1 million Freedom of Information Act requests for the information in this trial, because the gag order should not prevent any public officer from disclosing the public records in his care once the gag order does not apply.
Yeah, and there's been times they've had to reach out to unseal gag orders. Like there was a gag order on this probable cause affidavit in the very beginning of this case. It took like more like a month to get that unsealed. Things like that. I don't know how long Indiana or Idaho takes to unseal once they unseal a case. Once it's a done deal, what do they wait for the appeals process? Do you know what I mean? Are they going to be able to try this person again? Will any of this be brought up? I don't know how any of that's going to work over there. There's so much already under our Florida Sunshine Law. Discovery is full of a lot of things. We get a lot of things. We see that. We get the jailhouse phone calls. Talking to your mom and your dad on the phone, but we're hearing all of it. We heard it all with Casey Anthony. We're hearing it all with Stephan Stearns. We will hear it with any case we want to if we ask for it. It's there for the taking, right? If there's being recorded and not recorded over and interviews being lost. Can't do that in Florida because we need to see it now. We have sunshine laws that require you to show us. I don't guess Indiana's got that strong of a law. Well, I guess maybe they do, but they got the excuse that they can lose it, record over it, and it's all good. I don't know. Crazy shit.
You can't present at trial what doesn't exist anymore.
Nah. Too bad. I just don't know anymore. But with that said, we're probably going to wrap it up. We've been going on close to 4 hours, and for us, that's a little bit long, but that's okay. There was a lot to talk about with the unpacking of the Delphi case and the fact that, it's rested now, both sides, and, and closing arguments, and that's it. It'll be handed to the jury to make the decision that's felt like it's been forever, long time coming. So, and like I said, tomorrow is the Bryan Kohberger hearing in the morning, so I will probably come out live tomorrow afternoon, talk about that a little bit, and we'll keep an eye on this verdict. Are we under verdict watch at that point once these closing arguments are heard? It's what they call it in the true crime world. So you're on verdict watch, and that's yeah, that's crazy. Will we get any sleep? Will you sleep, Joe? I don't know if I will. Honestly, I don't know.
I don't know. I had insomnia, and
Yeah,
this
I,
case like pushes that, like it generates that because of the anxiety associated with
uh,
not being in control. We are emotionally invested, and we are not in control in any way,
yeah,
shape, or form. So we have to have faith in the jury, and we have to have faith in our system. And I
yeah,
do.
we do.
I do.
I want to believe that, and I do have faith in the jury, and they have shown me that I think I can have faith in them to do the right thing based on all that they've seen because I understand there's maybe elements that I haven't seen that they have seen, different context about things that I've seen that they've seen because they're ones there every day, so I have to count on them and they've asked good questions. They've asked questions I would have asked. They've asked technical questions even. So just based on what I have seen, I feel like they are best equipped to make a good decision as best as the defense was allowed to give them as far as um, in their line of questioning of the state's witnesses on the evidence, their experts and things like that, and then being allowed to bring in their own gun person that it's one time you can't call nobody else, but this one, you know what I mean, not a whole lot as far prosecution was bringing in or attempting to bring in. I don't know if you can qualify all of them as experts, but they tried.
Yeah, and it comes back again one more time to that the key point, which is if you believe that the state's expert and the defense's expert are pretty much even Steven, then you are supposed to give, as a jury member, you are supposed to give the benefit to the defense.
Yeah.
Like if it's a tie in your mind, the tie goes to the defense. Even if it's slightly more to the state than to the defense, you're still supposed to give it. It's got to be beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right. That's where your beyond comes in, right? Beyond reasonable doubt and everything. You're exactly right. And it's like you almost had to have overwhelming.
You have to have
Sorry.
convincing evidence. The words we saw today were convincing evidence.
Yeah. I, well, I can honestly look at what they presented, and I don't know if I see convincing anything.
Nope.
I see probable cause. I see circumstantial, but nothing convincing.
Yeah.
Look, over in Idaho, we have grainy car footage. Over here in Delphi, we have grainy car footage. We got cell phone doing things over here in Idaho, cell phone doing things over here in Indiana. We have DNA in Idaho that connects the suspect to the crime. We don't have that in Indiana.
Yeah.
So we literally only have circumstantial, and one expert coming in telling one expert. I didn't get to listen to 5 different experts giving an opinion. I got to listen to one tell me the whole time it was the weapon. And finally I got to hear from a rebuttal witness basically saying, well, could have been, but here's some issues. That's good, but I still would have liked to have heard a few more experts. Like, can we call multiples in the future? Like, I need to hear many different opinions first. I
Right.
don't.
It's the preponderance of evidence, which is the
Yeah,
lowest standard, versus more than more not, versus a beyond a reasonable doubt. And I don't think any of us on the outside looking in, and none of us are jury members, but none of us on the outside looking in believe that this case has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, except for those people out there who are like, from the beginning, Richard Allen's guilty. Richard Allen is bridge guy. Richard
Yeah.
Allen's. I mean, there are people that were convinced that he was the guilty from day one, and that's fine. You can believe that. You have your right to believe that. But if you're trying to tell me that the state proved that case beyond a reasonable doubt, I will believe in this jury before I believe in you.
Yeah. You got to listen to all of the evidence that was presented, regardless. I try not to. That's it's when I say dangerous. It's not. There's not a danger in it, but if you're in true crime and you want to try to be fair and listen to stuff as it develops in a case, you shouldn't maybe come right out of the gate and be for or against one or the other. Like, I know this person's guilty, or I know they're innocent. How do I know nothing? I don't know nothing about them or the case yet. I got to get to know the case. And as that case develops and you learn more, you may start to develop a thought. And that's what we did with this case, as well as all the cases. That's normal. But it's not like it's a conspiracy thing. It's like legitimate concerns brought up by legitimate investigations, and things of that nature that all lent itself to what this case is. And it should have been a much higher profile case than it turned out to be, if you're going to call a case a high profile case, because of what it appears could be happening to the person charged here.
Well, there's a difference between high profile case and
What makes a high profile case?
High profile investigation.
Yeah.
So in the public media, social media, Facebook, immediately, I know because I was there, this was like all of the rage, all of the news. Everybody was trying to find out who is bridge guy, except for ISP and Carroll County Sheriff's Office and Tobe Lesenby, who was the number one investigator of this case. They're not trying to find out who's bridge guy. They're trying to get tips. That's what they're doing. They're like, somebody give us a tip that will help solve this case. They didn't collect the sticks with the blood. They didn't take a body core temperature at the scene of the crime to establish the time of death. They didn't take Hoosier Harvester video. There's so many things that they didn't do to solve this crime.
I know.
Except ask for tips. Oh, God.
Asked for tips, and they said that there were people who called and said, I know somebody who might look like this bridge guy. I think I know whose voice that is. But nobody ever called and said, I think that's Rick Allen.
No, they didn't. You are 100% correct. No, they didn't.
So then, like Joe said, all they come out was asking for tips. One day, all we need is that one tip. It's going to jog a memory. Let's play this video again. Let's show this merging photographs again. It's going to jog your memory.
Doug Carter literally said that.
It did not jog, excuse me, but it didn't jog Dan Doolin's damn memory. I don't care how many times you came together with that one, Doug. Right, Joe?
He said, we are one tip away from solving this case. And then I can share with you all of my knowledge, of my extensive knowledge about this case, which lasted 10 minutes and did not educate us at all about this case when he got on the stand 2 days ago.
I'm so appalled by that, because a lot of us were waiting on Doug to make an appearance. We were forced to look at him for years, and then suddenly he's MIA. Oh, look, he's finally appeared in full uniform, and he makes a 10-minute appearance. I mean, I'm glad he got up there and told everybody, yes, it's my fault. FBI left the case. I asked them to leave. But God, we have a whole lot more questions for you, Mr. Carter. Gosh, do we ever?
I would pay $1 million, and I don't have $1 million, but I would pay $1 million to cross-examine him for 1 hour.
I know Joe's got a lot of questions for Doug Carter. I know that, I'm like, yep, they're all warranted. I promise you that. We'll have to do that like a whole show, Joe. Joe's list of questions for Doug Carter. It will be. Oh, we might have a few others we could throw in there. Lesenby. Is that who
Oh
else was?
yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Oh yeah.
there's like,
He'd take us to hour number 2, and then
yeah.
we get Liggett, and Liggett would take us to
There
hour
you
3,
go. That's
and then we
yeah.
get Mullins, and Mullins would take us
Oh
to hour 4,
gosh,
and
man.
then we get Kathy Shank, and she's such a sweet elderly lady, and she really
Right.
is a sweet elderly lady. Like, I'm not making that up. Like
Well,
she almost fell down the steps, and I almost had to catch her falling down the marble steps in the Carroll County Courthouse. But that doesn't mean that she,
well, she
yeah,
wasn't doing that 7 years ago, was she? Falling down.
no.
Okay, so bless her little heart now. Being put through all this, all these years later, because somebody misfiled that tip that she found in a box.
In a drawer.
Yeah.
A box in a drawer of
And they was
misfiled
getting ready to
lead
move
sheets.
to, yeah, gonna move locations, right? Swap from one to the next. Gotta move these papers too. Oh, look. What in the world? Mm-mm-mm. Well, thank you, Niles. We are glad you're here listening. Somebody does like us. Look at that.
1 or 2 people. That's enough.
Yeah,
That's enough. All you need
it's
is 1
cool.
or 2.
Sometimes I'll get to go and it's like, y'all throw a red flag in the chat if I get to go in too much, or we'll give Joe like a virtual one. Butterfly, you can do that. I won't get mad. Oh, that's my sign. You know what I mean? But anyway, guys, I am going to let you guys go. I'm going to take a break and get something to eat and chill out, and see what happens. I guess they're going to go and do closing arguments in the morning, from what I'm understanding. So the jury won't actually get the case until then to start deliberating.
All right. If you do happen to get True Grit coming on here, let me know.
Time tomorrow afternoon to talk about the Kohberger case and the new stuff in the Delphi case. So we'll let you know. Joe, thanks again for coming on and co-hosting. I appreciate it as usual.
Love being on board. I love it.
Thank you. And Butterfly, thank you, hun. Appreciate you always monitoring chat for us. Pulling double duty there. I know you're a busy girl, so appreciate you like nobody's business. Really, really do. All Eyes, thank you for coming in as well. Anybody who came in to listen, listening on the replay, we appreciate you. And again, probably tune in tomorrow afternoon. We'll be back. Have a good one. Bye.
Catch y'all later. Take care. Be good.